Lord of Mysteries, Survival from the Secret Doll by author Atmorn. Chapter 360 to 374. Everything was proceeding in an orderly fashion. To prevent the big shot behind Zemanger Gang's executioner, Merceau from noticing the problem here, a few minutes after Klein left to submit the report, Tang changed his appearance and left the detective agency. He disguised himself as the Sequence 9 hunter and wandered around outside, pretending that the hunter had not met with any accident, before using a paper substitute to interfere with the corresponding divination and returning to the detective agency. He's just a Sequence 9 hunter, so the people above him certainly won't pay too much attention to him. When Klein returned, Tang's gaze swept over the motionless corpse on the ground, and after a moment of contemplation, he said to Klein, "Klein, what are your thoughts? Perhaps we can start with Ian Wright. Since Zemanger Gang's executioner came knocking, it means the person behind them believes Ian Wright has value that we don't know about. As for this marionette, should we disguise ourselves as him and infiltrate Zemanger Gang to get information on his superior?" Klein and Tang had both communed with the spirit of this executioner, obtaining corresponding information from his dead spirit due to being turned into a marionette. What does the Intis ambassador, who is targeting Ian Wright, want to do? Is this matter related to the manuscript of the third-generation differential engine? Klein looked at Tang and asked, "Can you do it?" "Of course, I can," Tang shrugged. "Disguise is easy, the hard part is not getting exposed. There are still some subtle differences between a marionette and a living person. Beyonders of other sequences might not be able to tell, but I'm not the only marionettist in Backland. If there are beyonders of the same sequence around that Intis ambassador, they might be able to discover from the details that his subordinate has already been turned into someone else's marionette." Tang suddenly thought of something and clicked his tongue, speaking of which, Intis's Bureau 8 controls the seer pathway. The previous detective Zuriel was suspected to be a faceless acting in public. I now highly suspect that among the beyonders accompanying that Intis ambassador, there is a faceless, a marionettist, or even a trickster. Klein, who had directly faced a secret order trickster, naturally understood the horror of a trickster very well. As for Detective Zuriel, with his body already discovered, the report letter Klein submitted should soon be taken over by official beyonders to investigate the Fursak spy's residence and other people connected to him. If their reaction was fast enough, they should have already escaped when they and Ian Wright discovered Zuriel's body, leaving Military Intelligence 9 and the Church's official beyonders empty-handed. Ruin shouldn't allow another country's demigod to easily enter Backland, Klein said. Regardless of political or military aspects, it is very difficult for demigods from other countries to openly cross borders and reach the political power centers of other nations. It's also possible that this is a demigod-level spy who secretly infiltrated, with Intis concealing it from Ruin. That's true. Tang nodded, agreeing with Klein's statement, then we'll split up later. I'll investigate that ambassador, and you'll take on some tasks here, familiarize yourself with the surrounding environment, and blend into the mysticism circle here. Okay. The two clearly divided their tasks. After setting up corresponding defensive ritual magic in the detective agency and their residences, they began their respective investigations. During the investigation, more and more people came to the detective agency. Although official forces vaguely noticed their detective agency's unusually high mission completion rate, the two, who deliberately chose to worship the Black Night Goddess and live in the Night Watcher's area of responsibility under the Black Night Goddess Church, were not afraid of anyone coming to investigate their identities. Investigators and Night Watchers who knew the inside story would play dumb, and Military Intelligence 9's attention was not here. Instead, because of their high spirituality and strong divination abilities, their excellent detective work quickly gained recognition in the circle, and Klein and Tang were able to come into contact with more and more people. That night, Tang, who had infiltrated Zemanger Gang, his eyes subtly shifted, looking out the window. The red moon in the sky began to turn blood red, and silent shouts and frenzied praises continuously escalated at this moment. Spirituality was growing, madness was surging, and under the blood-red moon, everything was tinged with an ominous color. In astrology, the blood moon was once considered a special astronomical phenomenon, while in mysticism, nights with a blood moon could, to some extent, stimulate the spirituality of monsters and make plants grow faster, an extreme manifestation in the domain of life. Although, the Black Night Goddess does not have authority over life. The fallen Mother Goddess is attempting to pass through the barrier and influence the real world again. He walked to the window, tilted his head slightly, and listened for a moment to the information transmitted from his main body. As a historical void projection from over 1,000 years ago, only at sequence 5 level, there wasn't much he could do now. His biggest task was to watch over Klein in Backland and prevent him from dying unexpectedly. Tonight, enter that area, face Mr. Door directly, and try to save him. It's also a difficult task, though looking at the situation, the possibility of success is quite high. Tang pulled a card from his pocket. It was a magician card. Well, the salted fish can be given to Klein. The high-end tarot club doesn't need salted fish without dreams. Above the pitch-black ocean, many marine creatures were savagely devouring their kind under the blood-red moon. The density of marine creatures here was also higher than in other areas, with various deformed species or creatures with extraordinary abilities wantonly releasing and reveling in the pitch-black ocean, which only reflected the blood-red sky. Tang's figure passed through Euclidean space and landed here, standing above the ocean that reflected the blood-red moon in the sky. The marine creatures underfoot, affected by the blood moon, wanted to devour this uninvited guest. As soon as they swam into his hunting range, their bodies stiffened one by one, then fell into the bottomless ocean, becoming corpses and nourishment for other creatures. I hope that for the next period, this sea area will be quiet enough. Tang snapped his fingers, using miracle to make the little creatures underfoot behave. Let me see, it should be here. After confirming the coordinates were correct, Tang took out a garland made of night jasmine and deep sleep flower from his system space. As soon as the garland, carrying the aura of darkness and eternal sleep, emerged from the system space, the noisy surroundings and the endlessly turbulent prayers and frenzied roars quieted down. Tang glanced at the blood-red moon above his head, so red it seemed to drip blood, and his figure slowly dissipated again. In the Euclidean space, corresponding to the same sea area. After using his authority to seal and isolate this area, so that even if Mr. Door's corruption escaped, this part of Euclidean space could be sealed to isolate it, Tang then placed the garland on a pitch-black sea surface. He also pulled out candles, Abraham family direct bloodline blood, and ritual tools from the historical mist. With preparations complete, Tang scanned the altar, then looked at the blood-red moon in the sky, slowly opened his mouth, and chanted in ancient Hermes. Great door of all doors. Guide of the endless starry sky. Key to all mystical worlds. A whistling wind arose in the Euclidean space. The garland, woven by the Black Night Goddess from deep sleep flower and night jasmine, capable of opening the seal's crack without Mr. Door's response, silently became tinged with a pitch-black color, showing traces of lightning burns. The wretch was banished to an endless darkness, to a secluded island guarded by eternal storms, far from the real world, independent of the astral world and the real world. Only occasionally could Mr. Door glimpse this planet he loved, through the influence of the fallen Mother Goddess's power. Even so, Mr. Door could only constantly struggle on the edge of pain and madness, suppressing the increasingly powerful malice and corruption within him, continuously shouting, "Don't save me, don't save me." However, everything was twisted by the fallen Mother Goddess and his own malice into, "Save me, save me." If a member of the Abraham family truly listened to this voice and rescued Mr. Door. Darkness bloomed from the garland, and endless darkness obscured the blood-red, ominous moon in the sky. After doing all this, Tang pulled out a severed hand from the historical mist. This was a remnant left behind when Aemon was pulled into Euclidean space by him earlier and tried to summon Mr. Door, who was then forcefully slapped back. Under the authority of error, this historical void image could still be regarded as a part of Mr. Door's body. Before this, to solve the problem of the alien spaceship in Feniport's Santa Harbor, Tang had also taken it out and used it to resolve Mr. Door's seal. After confirming the severed hand was usable, Tang wrapped it in sparkling crystal and looked at the darkness surging from the garland. Inside the darkness, lightning flashed and thunder roared. That place should have been a world composed of storms, darkness, and lightning, but now there were some different things. Those things glowed with an ominous red, similar to the blood moon in the sky, seemingly incompatible with the storm, darkness, and lightning, presenting a state of opposition. Crimson sometimes eroded the lightning, turning the lightning blood red, and sometimes was shattered by the lightning, becoming blood-red fragments that disappeared into the darkness. Both conflicting and intertwined, both mad and rational. The power of the Black Night Goddess and the Storm Lord was suppressed to its lowest point when the Blood Moon arrived. In the late Fourth Epoch, the Black Night Goddess and the Storm Lord banished Bertrand Abraham, expelling him to a sealed land far from reality, thus preventing this angel king, who had been influenced by the fallen Mother Goddess during his travels through the starry sky, from becoming the vanguard for the fallen Mother Goddess's invasion of this planet. And this also fulfilled the promotion conditions for Door. As long as Bertrand Abraham returns, Bertrand Abraham, who has completed the Door sequence, promotion ritual, as the true god of the Door sequence, no one in the real world will be able to capture this deity whose soul has been corrupted by the fallen Mother Goddess. Even the barrier, which is an extension of the Door, and spatial authority, maintaining the normal operation of the entire world and isolating the invasion of outer gods, would be affected. Mr. Door cannot be allowed to escape at this time node. This is the Black Night Goddess's only request. Tang naturally understood this point. But since we're taking a risk, we'll have to bear some risks. A bluish-black door, seemingly composed of countless clustered insects, silently appeared behind Tang, opening slightly. In the mystical space above the gray mist, Mr. Error straightened his black silk top hat, standing ready. Their gazes collectively looked towards the world where lightning occasionally streaked across the sky, illuminating a crimson hue in the darkness. Tang lifted his foot and stepped into the black world without hesitation. Darkness swallowed him, and the bluish-black light door, as Tang stepped in, also entered the area ruled by darkness, lightning, crimson, and storms. It was completely dark all around. Tang tilted his head, confirmed that Source Castle was still moving with him, and gained a bit more confidence in what he was about to do. Unlike what he saw outside, after entering this area, Tang could see almost nothing but darkness and the grotesque lightning that occasionally pierced through the darkness. The crimson light had disappeared, that ominous red glow seemed to have been swallowed by this eternally existing blackness. Tang took out a lantern from the historical mist. The dim yellow light dispelled some of the darkness. Gusts of wind and heavy rain were deflected by an invisible force just before they reached Tang, not falling on him. Tang analyzed this part of the rain and strong wind, discovering that all things in this area possessed a certain degree of purification and eternal sleep properties. The Storm Lord, authority is over weather and natural forces. Lightning strikes have purifying abilities. Thinking about it, it seems to make a little sense. Eternal sleep naturally came from the Black Night Goddess. Simultaneously purifying Mr. Door and trying to make him sleep until the end of days was clearly what the Storm Lord and the Black Night Goddess intended to do at the time. However, as the barrier became increasingly fragile and the influence of the fallen Mother Goddess's power grew, this idea was clearly destined to fail. Who is it? Tang walked a distance with his lantern. He heard a hoarse voice, coming from the depths of the storm and darkness. The voice was very close, yet also very distant. He couldn't determine the location of the voice's owner through sound and quickly said, "I am a lost adventurer. I was entrusted by a descendant of the Abraham family to find a missing member of the Abraham family. When traveling outside, one's identity is self-proclaimed." Chapter 361, 360 Mr. Door. A lost adventurer. The voice from the depths of the darkness was quite surprised by this. With two angel kings of equal stature who had already made plans, plus the assistance of the mystics' three sequences and the Source Castle, He did not recognize that the Beander who had intruded into this forbidden area was Tang Eggers, who had once cost him half an arm. When the voice sounded again, Tang subtly surveyed his surroundings. The darkness here was too dense, and to maintain the effectiveness of his deception and trickery, he dared not directly use the authority of Euclidean space to see the true situation of this area. Seeing that Bertrand Abraham had no intention of appearing, Tang feigned alertness, displaying the humility and spirit a Beander misplaced in another's territory should possess, and continued to speak. Yes, after accepting the commission from that Abraham family member, I traveled the world, saw the vast oceans, witnessed devastated cities, and set foot in ancient structures burying the ancient history of the Fourth Epoch. I visited secret places long forgotten by people, and in this journey, I gained many ancient historical texts. He probed cautiously. Perhaps, do you know the whereabouts of that Abraham family ancestor I am looking for? This time, Tang was disguised as a Sequence 3 ancient scholar. Studying ancient history and becoming a scholar from ancient history, as a Sequence 3 of the diviner pathway, the acting rule of this sequence also requires ancient scholars to put in more effort and face greater dangers than other saints. Carelessly, an ancient scholar in the process of digesting the potion could very likely die while pursuing ancient knowledge buried in the currents of history. Ancient scholar is a sequence with a very high upper limit and an equally low lower limit. The more history they study and know, the more secret and powerful it is, the stronger the power ancient scholars can exert. It is not impossible to even contend with an angel within a certain period. And the former Abraham family controlled the student sequence, which is an adjacent sequence to the diviner pathway. With the Abraham family gradually declining, it is a very reasonable development for them to commission an ancient scholar to help them find a very important Abraham member, offering a 0 inches class sealed artifact corresponding to sequence 1 or sequence 2 of the student sequence's remuneration. The two branches into which the Abraham family is currently divided, one is under the protection of Mr. Error and has always been in a relatively safe environment, while the other has grown wildly, and now very few people in this branch can advance to sequence 4 magician. Since that choice 1,000 years ago, the divided Abraham family, one has become more prosperous, while the other is steadily moving towards the predetermined outcome of decline and extinction. And it is perfectly reasonable for Abraham members not under the protection of Mr. Error to try to restore their past glory, attempting to find that ancient but not deceased ancestor. Behind Tang, a smaller, slightly open, dark blue light door, Mr. Error was providing him with necessary deceptive assistance. Under the circumstances of being contaminated by the fallen mother goddess and sealed in this area for 1,000 years, Mr. Door, although rational, did not have much of it. Tang felt he could try to trick Mr. Door out first, and then proceed with the next step of handling him. Would Mr. Door and the fallen mother goddess let go of an ancient scholar of an adjacent sequence, who had mistakenly entered this area ruled by storms and darkness, a neighboring sequence ancient scholar? The answer is naturally. It seems you are an ancient scholar who has strayed into this exiled area. From the darkness, a slightly aged voice slowly said, "Who is the person the Abraham family is looking for?" "I'm not quite sure." Tang held up his lantern, and regardless of whether Mr. Door could see it, he shook his head. They only said it was a former great noble, an angel. They seemed to call him Mr. Door. As for the source of the full moon curse, Olsen, who had become an angel, knew that it originated from Mr. Door, his ancestor Bertrand Abraham, who disappeared during the Four Emperors' War. As for whether Olsen told this news to other members of the Abraham family, Tang was not clear, but he estimated that those high sequence beyonders should know a thing or two. As for the middle and low sequences, or that branch that did not choose to rely on Miskatonic University more than 1,000 years ago, Tang was very clear that the people within it did not know. After all, there are always fools who want to do something self-righteous. Mr. Door is the source of their full moon whispers, and being able to free Mr. Door means the lifting of their curse. The red light of the spirit world. 7 Lights once made a similar prophecy for a member of the Abraham family. But the latter half was, when Mr. Door returns and the full moon curse is lifted, a greater calamity for the Abraham family would then descend upon them. Does the current Mr. Door truly care about the lives of the Abrahams? No, certainly not. But among them, the Mr. Door struggling in the gap between the fallen mother goddess and his own mad consciousness, constantly shouting, "Don't save me," is the only remaining humanity after he was contaminated. Two branches. One knows that Mr. Door is the source of the full moon whispers but is not afraid of them, while the other does not know the source of the full moon whispers but is especially panicked by them. Tang's narrative style, mixing and matching lies in a montage-like fashion, made every one of his statements true when the order was disrupted. Olsen had indeed asked him to find Mr. Door, and the Abraham family did indeed try to restore their former glory. Everything was correct, and everything was wrong. Mr. Door. The voice in the darkness sighed for a long time, seemingly also reminiscing about this name. Yes, may I ask, do you know Mr. Door? Tang displayed the attitude an ancient scholar should have. He seemed to have been trapped in this deep darkness for many years, hiding in the darkness he could not see, able to communicate, and appearing quite benevolent. This was an excellent opportunity to understand ancient history. No matter which ancient scholar, they would think this way. The powerful being in the darkness seemed to be pondering, or perhaps reminiscing about the past. Mr. Door has indeed not appeared in the real world for a long time. As one of the 5 great nobles during the Fourth Epoch Tudor Empire, the former prosperity of the Abraham family was closely related to this Mr. Door. Mr. Door seemed to have been trapped for a long time in this world where there was no living thing besides him. Now, he had become quite eager to share. In the world shrouded in darkness and exploding with lightning, he spoke a lot, including various historical secrets of the Fourth Epoch Tudor Empire, as well as various confrontations, collaborations, and wars between nations and churches during the Four Emperors' War. If it were an ancient scholar who was digesting a potion, everything Mr. Door said would become the driving force for the ancient scholar's potion to be completely digested. Tang could feel Mr. Door's intention. Trying to use a large amount of real historical texts to numb my spirituality. Why would Mr. Door talk so much to him if it was just to help him digest the potion? To dissolve and numb the self-defense of a sequence 3-level diviner with super strong spiritual pre-warning, first use a large amount of real and useful ancient history to numb my spirituality, so that in the process of rapidly digesting the potion, I cannot be distracted to discern the traps hidden in his words. By prolonging the speed of reaction, under the suppression of his status, an ordinary ancient scholar would not be able to react and would fall into the trap when encountering Mr. Door's trap. For an ancient scholar immersed in a large number of real historical texts, whether what Mr. Door said was true or false, whether it was real history or fictional events, the feedback from the potion cannot be faked. Mr. Door talked a lot, so much that an ancient scholar who had just drunk the potion could digest most of it, and then the key point finally arrived. Until Mr. Door, who had returned from his travels in the starry sky, met the Black Night Goddess and the Storm Lord, they discovered the power hidden within Mr. Door. That is, the ancient scholar, listening carefully, did not feel any abnormality in his spirituality and immediately continued, that is from the Mother's power. Mother. The night and storm were instantly dispersed at this moment, and a huge, blood-red moon appeared above Tang's head. The moon is so beautiful, look at the moon. The moon is so beautiful, look at the moon. Look at the moon, look at the moon, look at the moon. Save me, save me, save me. Don't look at the moon, don't look at the moon, don't look at the moon. Don't save me, don't save me, don't save me. Mr. Door said with a smile. As Mr. Door said that, the power contained within him comes from the Mother, the entire world seemed to change. All of a sudden, a massive amount of mental pollution surged into Tang's brain. The reason why Mr. Door, or rather the power of the fallen Mother Goddess remaining here, played cat and mouse with an ancient scholar instead of directly killing him, was that they wanted to turn him into a follower of the fallen Mother Goddess, which was more troublesome. This was not because the fallen Mother Goddess lacked believers, nor was it because Mr. Door wanted to spare his life. The reason Mr. Door is here, and the reason the fallen mother goddess contaminated Mr. Door, is only because she wants to enter the barrier more quickly while the barrier still exists. Outer gods do indeed retain some rationality, more or less, but madness is the underlying color of this world. If they can come earlier, why wait? So, after Mr. Door was trapped here, the ancient scholar who mysteriously appeared in the seal became their next target. As long as they figure out the secret of this ancient scholar, they can leave this place by following the path the ancient scholar took to get here. This is not difficult for a star key with the authority of space. The difficult part was that they hadn't found a crack in the seal, but Tang had. Perhaps it was an intermittent crack in the seal, or perhaps this seal focused more on suppressing the powers of Mr. Door and the fallen mother goddess, nothing else mattered. For an ancient scholar who can pull historical void projections, polluting them into followers of the mother is still more valuable than killing them for divination, so they can work for them. Even if Mr. Door cannot leave, an ancient scholar familiar with Mr. Door's history can still accomplish many things after reaching the outside world. Everything was arranged perfectly, everything was so coincidental. Tang looked at the blood-red moon in the sky, his mind constantly ringing with the insane mental pollution of, save me, and, don't save me, go, and he smiled like the old man standing under the blood-red moon, dressed in a robe made of blood with a red base. It seems we're on the same page. Mr. Door's gaze paused when it fell upon the ancient scholar. The feeling of being deceived and fooled suddenly vanished when he genuinely saw Tang's existence. He had a moment of trance, seemingly seeing a gray-white mist, and a condescending gaze from above the gray mist. It's really not easy to deceive you and the fallen mother goddess. Tang snapped his fingers, and his figure quickly dissipated. This was merely an image from the historical void. Regardless of whether he was mad, dead, or had become a follower of the fallen mother goddess, this would not change the fact that he was merely a historical projection from the past. After Tang's figure disappeared, behind him, from the slightly smaller bronze light door, an arm suddenly stretched out, grabbing certain remnants left after the historical projection vanished. Mr. Door immediately realized what it was. He looked at where the arm extended from and said word by word, "Source, castle." Correct. Another snap of fingers came from the darkness. Too bad, no reward. Under the blood moon, darkness surged wildly, and streaks of lightning struck Mr. Door's location. A storm composed of bright silver lightning engulfed that space-time. The object Mr. Error was pulling struggled, a weak, illusory, faint blood-colored essence continuously spread upwards, attempting to completely contaminate the entire stripped object, a weak part of the spirit. Tang, emerging from the darkness, picked up the historical void image of Mr. Door's arm, protected by brilliant crystals, that was beside him. He brought it close to the dark blue light door, near the small cluster of spirit that was about to be pulled into the source castle. The blood-red contamination of the spirit seemed to see an even more delicious prey, and under Mr. Error's misleading, it continuously surged out of that weak spirit and into the severed arm in Tang's hand. With that, the task was complete. The dark blue light door quickly closed, preventing the fallen mother goddess from discovering the issue. Tang then looked at the sky, at the blood-red moon that had grown significantly larger after the source castle appeared, and smiled slightly. I hope you like my gift. Chapter 362, 361 Inches Magician. Fallen Mother Goddess, Original God, and Fu Sheng Zan Huang Tian Zun, the three pillars that have supported the entire world since their initial slumber, respectively control the reality, spirit world, and astral world. As the existing pillar that has not fallen, and even with the hive stripped away still maintains the symbol of a pillar, would the fallen mother goddess, currently in the best state, wish for the original god and Fu Sheng Zan Huang Tian Zun to awaken? No, absolutely not. The original god and Fu Sheng Zan Huang Tian Zun have already self-destructed under the influence of the law of Beander characteristics convergence, and their fall has given the only existing reality pillar in this universe a chance. The fallen mother goddess does not wish to see the original god or Fu Sheng Zan Huang Tian Zun resurrected. Therefore, Upon seeing the cyan black light door beside Tang disappear, the fallen mother goddess cast more gazes and exerted more power. She would absolutely not allow the current master of Source Castle to take Mr. Door. Under the blood moon, Mr. Door's face, shrouded in lightning, was hidden beneath a blood-colored hood, making his expression indiscernible to anyone. However, that face looked terrifyingly gloomy. Did she lose her composure? Tang smiled faintly. It seems the fallen mother goddess has realized something. Although Tang's actions caused the last remnants of Mr. Door's humanity, which were struggling to disappear, the fallen mother goddess has now completely taken control of this not-so-obedient angel king of the door sequence. His figure vanished, along with the cyan black light door, returning to its original state under the gaze of the fallen mother goddess. Historical void images, after all, must return to the historical mist. The seal, jointly maintained by the Black Knight goddess and the Storm Lord, once again repaired its cracks. Mr. Door, with his gloomy expression amidst the vast lightning, and the blood moon hanging above the night and lightning, were obscured by boundless darkness. Outside the region enveloped by endless storms and darkness, within Euclidean space, the wreath woven from nightshade and deep-sleeked flowers silently shattered, dissolving from higher dimensions into lower dimensions, remelting into the sea, and vanishing without a trace. The calm sea once again returned to its usual hustle and bustle. The power of the miracle disappeared, and the blood moon hung in the sky. Compared to the blood moon before, which was almost identical to its usual appearance, the current blood moon had magnified several times. The countless stars were like invisible eyes, reflecting on the black velvet curtain, violently scanning everything here through the barrier. But the result was nothing. The sudden outburst of the fallen mother goddess was something the Black Knight goddess and the Storm Lord, through their senses, had anticipated. The moon, orbiting the cerulean planet, approached the barrier, exerting pressure on it. In distant regions, the brown star, orange star, red star, and gold stars seemed to flicker, as if blinking, their attention drawn. However, very quickly, the barrier torn by the blood moon was promptly refilled by the power of the seven deities, restoring itself to its original state. The blood moon returned to its former orbit, as if its sudden approach to the cerulean planet had never occurred. Everything once again returned to peace. In the mysterious space above the gray mist, Mr. Error sat at the head of the bronze long table, and Tang sat at the very bottom. Both watched the small piece of spirit torn from Mr. Door, suspended in the center of the bronze long table, in silent contemplation. This state, Mr. Error slowly spoke, extremely weak. Even if you allowed him to retain a certain degree of intelligence, memory, and spirituality, Mr. Door in this state cannot converse with us normally. He was merely a small remnant of the true Mr. Door, corrupted by the fallen mother goddess. After detaching from his main body, it became even more difficult for him to maintain his own state. It certainly seems that way. Tang rested his hand on his chin. Although I had some premonition, I truly didn't expect that only this much of Mr. Door's uncorrupted self remained. When Tang saw Mr. Door, and when Mr. Door poured mental pollution into his body, he likewise observed Mr. Door in reverse, distinguishing between the corrupted and uncorrupted parts. Then, using the authority of the Supreme Being, he severed Mr. Door's good and evil, allowing the spirit that still retained his good side to escape the seal. Using the Source Castle's status and Mr. Error's uniqueness, he stored it above Source Castle. What remained in the seal now was Mr. Door, whose mind and heart were filled with, save me, and who probably wanted everyone in the world to have children. It's a bit like the tiger talisman in Jackie Chan Adventures, with yin within yang within yin, and the combination of yin and yang. Tang, can't you use the observer's authority to restore him to his complete state? Mr. Error asked. Although I'd love to say yes. Hearing what Mr. Error said, Tang narrowed his eyes, staring at the small uncorrupted mass of spirit. After observing it carefully for a moment, he regretfully shook his head. But the actual situation is as we expected, no. Although the observer's authority can revert his state to the point in time when his spirit was complete, Mr. Door at that time had already been corrupted by the fallen Mother Goddess. This is only a very small part of Mr. Door. Tang meticulously observed Mr. Door's past, and regrettably, Mr. Door was corrupted very early. The fallen Mother Goddess's corruption was similar to mimetic contamination. Even his uncorrupted past, during Mr. Door's long period of contamination, was also largely stained crimson. The intensity of the fallen Mother Goddess's corruption cannot be compared to a Sequence 0 like the True Creator or the Bound God, or even an Angel King of Sequence 1. For typical Old Ones, unless their core authority involves things like time and causality, the observer's blessing can also reverse them. Ultimately, there is a fundamental and vast chasm between Sequence 0, Old Ones, and Pillars. However, where there's a will, there's a way. The further back in time from when Mr. Door was corrupted, the better his state after being memetically contaminated by the fallen Mother Goddess. If we don't demand combat power, we can fully revert him to a Sequence 4 magician, a Sequence 5 traveler, or even just a Sequence 6 recorder. We can try to graft the main body of Mr. Door from that time period to supplement the current incomplete parts. Under the circumstances where the fallen Mother Goddess's corruption is contending with the influence of Source Castle and me, attempting to segment, graft, and fool should allow this part of the spirit to be refilled. Tang quickly formulated a treatment strategy. Although all of it was contaminated, grafting a less contaminated time period to the present, performing a small operation, and keeping it above Source Castle to isolate any potential contamination from the fallen Mother Goddess, would allow for the maintenance of its state. As an expert in this field, Tang drew his conclusion. Moreover, in this state where a part of his spirituality has escaped the seal, as long as the Beander characteristics and uniqueness are given to him, he can still immediately complete the Sequence 0 advancement ritual. Our initial goal was this, wasn't it? As long as this part of the spirit can achieve this, then there's no problem. That's right. Mr. Error nodded. Tang extended his hand, and the weak, damaged spirit in the center of the bronze long table flew into his hand. He placed it in his palm, closed his fingers, and made a fist. Brilliant light instantly burst forth from his fingertips. The power of Euclidean space enveloped this nearly collapsing spirit. Past, present, and future began to overlap under the authority of observation. Past, present, and future are one. An observer can float outside countless timelines, watching indifferently. Bestow Sequence 2, a portion of the observer's power, to allow Mr. Door to regain his past strength. Tang closed his eyes, mobilizing the power of Euclidean space above Source Castle. The brilliant light merged into the damaged spirituality, and its core likewise lit up. Branches from the future once again extended, rooting into the soil of the past. Behind Mr. Error, a cyan-black light door floated out. As Tang bestowed power, Mr. Error, who wielded deception, also reached out and grabbed towards Tang. Specks of crimson seeped from the spirit, which was constantly being repaired by the observer's bestowed power, and from the body of Mr. Door's remaining spirit, which had received the blessing of past power, entering his hand. Mr. Error clenched the crimson in his hand. The boundless gray fog in Source Castle surged and gathered into his palm, enveloping the clusters of crimson light, which were hideous and looked as if they would drip blood. Source Castle trembled slightly, responding to its controller's expectations. Only when no more crimson light flickered from Tang's side, and the gray fog surging towards Mr. Error stopped its relentless flow, did it cease. Mr. Error opened his palm, and a crystal-clear red glass bead, imbued with evil, corruption, madness, distortion, and life force, appeared in his hand. With a clatter, the red glass bead in Mr. Error's hand dropped onto the bronze long table, making a crisp sound. Under the gaze of Tang and Mr. Error, it began to roll silently. The glass bead, containing a portion of the fallen Mother Goddess's power, finally stopped in front of a high-backed chair. On the high-backed chair, a middle-aged man in a black cloak, with a stern and rigid face, appeared there. His eyes were closed, his breathing even, as if he had been sleeping for a long time, and would continue to sleep. It was only when the glass bead, containing the fallen mother goddess's power, rolled in front of this middle-aged man that he seemed to be roused, slowly opening his eyes. "Good evening, Bertrand Abraham." Mr. Error, at the head of the bronze long table, was the first to speak, saying with a smile. "As a current member of the Tarot Club, you can choose a card as your codename in the Tarot Club." 22 tarot cards appeared on the bronze long table, and one of them automatically floated towards Mr. Dorr, who had just awakened. That card was the Magician. Well, although he was told he could choose a card himself, Mr. Error had already made the choice for him. "Then, welcome, our Mr. Magician." Mr. Dorr, who had just woken up and was still a bit dazed. "Wait, what happened? Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? Question mark. Tonight's blood moon, the whispers heard were exceptionally clear and maddening. Stop talking. Stop talking. The great writer Furs Wall, who once met Klein, painfully curled up in bed. Her tears flowed incessantly from her eyes, and her whimpers never ceased. She had never heard it. Never heard such intense, mad whispers, so clearly transmitted when the blood moon arrived. "Save me. Is anyone there? Save me. Praise the moon. Praise the moon, praise the moon, ha 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 ha, praise the moon. Save me, save me, save me." The mad whispers seemed to be mixed with other sounds, but just hearing such mad whispers, Furs was on the verge of a mental breakdown and couldn't make out where the sound came from or what it was saying. "Ah. Stop talking. Ah. I'm going to die, I'm going to lose control." Furs could feel that outside the window, obscured by thick curtains, the blood-red moon was getting closer and closer to their planet, as if it wanted to gaze upon every person on this planet. "Look at the moon. Don't look at the moon. Look at the moon, look at the moon." Furs felt as if a new consciousness had been born within her. It kept tempting her to look at the blood moon, which she had not dared to face since she could hear the whispers. "Ah!" Furs screamed, her voice isolated by an unknown barrier, not disturbing Zio Derecha, who was resting next door, in the slightest. Outside the room, a figure was reflected in the window. The figure was beautiful and captivating, with a temperament unlike that of an ordinary person. The elder witch archer, stationed in Backland, noticed the anomaly here and arrived through a mirror. Great Mother's corruption. Her gaze penetrated the room, seeing Furs Wall in pain. The elder witch archer stared for a moment, and just as she was about to act, she suddenly paused as if she had perceived something. She turned her face, seemingly communicating with someone, nodded, and her figure gradually disappeared from the window where it was reflected. In the corner of the room, a crystal ball that Furs had once bought as decoration, said to be a relic from ancient times, suddenly lit up with a hazy, deep red glow. The light rapidly expanded, enveloping Furs, who was curled up like a shrimp on the bed, holding her head and screaming uncontrollably. Furs's consciousness was suddenly pulled into a patch of gray fog, and her figure sat down on a high-backed chair. The pain abruptly left her body, everything seemed so peaceful and quiet. Then, Furs noticed another presence above this gray fog. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. Where is this? The tarot cards floating in midair vanished, and the magician card was placed to the middle-aged man's left. The blood-red glass bead, tainted with the fallen mother goddess's corruption, which had been suspended before the middle-aged man, began to roll again. It moved towards the magician card, slowly sinking and merging into its surface. On the card, behind a figure holding a scepter in his right hand pointing to the sky, and his left hand pointing to the ground, with items like a holy grail, scepter, sword, and star coins laid out before him, a blood-red full moon rose slightly, imbuing the entire card with a sense of eerie dread. Mr. Error sat leisurely in the high-backed chair, while Mr. Dorr first surveyed his surroundings, his initial confusion quickly turning into surprise and daze. He looked towards Mr. Error, who sat at the head of the bronze long table. "Amen. But this Angel King, who was once a great noble of the Fourth Epoch Tudor Empire and had worked with Amon for a long time, quickly dismissed his thought. No, you are not Amon. Things gradually surfaced from his scattered memories. He murmured to himself, lost in his own recollections. No, no, Amon felt a sequence too, his authority dispersed, his uniqueness and corresponding Deander characteristics have been taken away. Are you the new blasphemer? From the current situation, it can indeed be said so. Mr. Error did not deny it. Mr. Door, do you still remember what happened to you? What happened to him? Due to fragmented memories and being mostly muddled after being eroded by the fallen mother goddess, controlled by a newly born self-consciousness, Mr. Door only then realized that he should be examining his own state. No, why am I here? I shouldn't be here, I shouldn't be here. If I leave, they will invade, those things. No, I cannot leave. The middle-aged man's confused thoughts stemmed from his incomplete spirit and the adverse reactions caused by his pieced-together body. Tang, who was quietly seated at the very end of the bronze long table, having transformed himself into an unobservable state, raised his hand and snapped his fingers, wishing upon himself and performing a miracle. Mr. Door's unstable state was temporarily calmed. He reached out his hand, looking at his much younger arm, somewhat dazed. This, seemingly realizing something, Mr. Door fell into another daze. The unreal sensation made him feel as if he had merely had a dream he wouldn't normally have. A dream, what a rare thing, what a longed-for thing. Speaking of which, how long had it been since he last dreamed? A year, 10 years, 100 years, a very, very long time, he had somewhat forgotten. Cannot dream, perhaps it is a dream, perhaps, I really can relax a bit, I am so tired, truly so tired. When this dream ends, he will still be enveloped by darkness, lightning, and the ocean, with the blood-red moon hanging high above his head, nurturing the malice within his body, making him fight himself endlessly, right? Relaxing a bit, it should be fine, right? No, no, I cannot dream, there is no time, that fellow will take this opportunity to do something. Wake up quickly. Cannot dream, homeland, homeland. He wanted to escape, but there was no way out. The returnee can never go back to his homeland. It's too real, it's really, too real. From the corner of Mr. Door's eye, a crystal-clear liquid slipped, dripping onto the bronze long table. He stood there stunned, memories resurfacing, all his chaotic thoughts slowly piecing together a complete person, again. I'm so tired, really, so tired. If this is a dream, let it last a little longer, please. Just for a moment, okay. He murmured, and after a long while, only then did he realize that this was not a dream. Not a dream. He was startled and once again fixed his gaze on Mr. Error. Clearly, Mr. Door knew of Amon's demise and the birth of a new blasphemer. Or rather, under the fallen mother goddess's mental pollution, even though Black Knight Goddess and Storm Lord tried their best to maintain the integrity of the seal, the fallen mother goddess's authority still allowed Mr. Door to wander at the edge of the world. The wretched creature trapped in darkness and storm could, at specific times, approach the real world and observe certain things. Was it you who did something? Yes, I snatched you from that one's hands. Mr. Error did not hide what he had done before. He said, I think you should have guessed where this is. Who, that one, referred to, in this world, perhaps no one knew better than Mr. Door, than Bertrand Abraham. His rigid, chaotic brain began to think, and Mr. Door swept his gaze across the gray-white mist surrounding him. Snatching someone from the fallen mother goddess's grasp, returning completely unharmed, this gray-white, boundless mist. Source Castle. The uniqueness corresponding to the thief, diviner, and student sequences are one of the necessary conditions to become the Lord of the Mysteries, the Beacon of Destiny, and the King of Space-Time. Only Source Castle, and an Angel King who holds Source Castle in one of these three sequences, could possibly snatch someone from the fallen Mother Goddess without being corrupted by the fallen Mother Goddess's pollution, thereby preventing the real world from being polluted prematurely. Mr. Door quickly calmed down. He sat in the high-backed chair, looking at Mr. Error, his expression returning to tranquility. Realizing something, he began to sort through his fragmented, disjointed memories. In his memories, ever since a certain time when he left here to travel among the stars, and then returned from the stars, things seemed to have gone awry. An unknown personality, not belonging to him or Fu Sheng Zan Huang Tian Zun, was silently awakening within him. That personality shared his abilities, his anchors, everything he had, yet it constantly influenced his thoughts and spirit. During his long mental confrontation with Fu Sheng Zan Huang Tian Zun, Mr. Dor did not realize that unexpected changes had occurred within him. His spirituality was veiled, and everything was heading towards the worst possible outcome. That personality of unknown origin silently fed on his flesh and blood, growing stronger within him. By the time he discovered the anomaly, things had already developed to a point where he could no longer reverse them. From a certain period, his consciousness began to experience large, inexplicable blanks, his thoughts were no longer coherent, and even when he was awake, many things began to spiral out of control, as if he were a puppet on strings, every action controlled by the puppeteer. Things he should have done were left undone, and things he should not have done, he did. Until he was sealed by Storm Lord and Black Night Goddess, he saw the blood moon that was born in the darkness because of him. Only then did he realize that he had been corrupted by the fallen Mother Goddess's spirit, his thoughts degraded, his soul reborn, and a new personality, subservient to the fallen Mother Goddess, dominated his body, growing stronger and stronger, making him increasingly difficult to control. The consciousness belonging to Fu Sheng Zan Huang Tian Zun was suppressed, and only then did he think of resisting, it was too ridiculous. Storm Lord and Black Night Goddess might have detected the problem, which was why they exiled him as he became increasingly out of control. But Mr. Dor realized that even though he had been sealed by Storm Lord and Black Night Goddess, and the fallen Mother Goddess's power was strengthening, pressing against the barrier, causing a blood moon to appear in the sky, his power could still indirectly affect Beyonders of the student sequence. The influence of high-sequence Beyonders on low-sequence Beyonders is quite significant, let alone an Angel King who controls the uniqueness of that sequence. Pollution would spread, especially from the Mother Goddess who wielded the authority of life. Through the power of bloodline and sequence, the Abrahams, who were connected to his bloodline and shared the same sequence, would one by one become followers of the fallen Mother Goddess, becoming ticking time bombs that would affect the world. Mr. Dor, whose thoughts were becoming increasingly chaotic, strengthened the seal, attempting to completely seal himself and thwart the fallen Mother Goddess's conspiracy. But the other newly born personality was too powerful, as he was also part of himself, his seal could also be undone by the new personality. He began to try every means to create more and more difficult to remove seals. Initially, there was some success, but later, the speed at which the seals were broken became faster and faster, and his periods of lucidity became shorter and shorter. In the long, millennia-long tug of war, Mr. Dor, who had long lost his anchors, could feel his self-consciousness growing weaker and weaker, and similarly, it became increasingly difficult to control his own thoughts. The fallen Mother Goddess's power was strengthening, the barrier was constantly weakening, and the power provided to the new personality made him increasingly difficult to resist. The Abrahams, connected to his bloodline, would, at the hands of the corrupted him, become followers of the fallen Mother Goddess. Having long known over the millennia that he could not achieve victory, he could only make more preparations. Amidst the other hymn's shouts, and the mental whispers that pierced the seal and influenced the Abrahams, he constantly interspersed angry roars of, "Don't save me," and, "Exile me," trying to make those people hear. One good piece of news, one bad piece of news. The bad news was that, affected by the fallen Mother Goddess, no one could hear the roar of his true self, hidden within that mad shouting. It was still a cry for help, still a desire for others to rescue him, the biggest ticking time bomb. The good news was that this gibberish was distorted, mixed with intentions and pollution, and coupled with his deliberate lack of control, even helping to amplify the mental influence, causing the Abrahams who heard the gibberish to go awry one after another. Those Abrahams who had hoped to help him resolve the seal died in pain. Those descendants who could hear his gibberish could not withstand the endless mental pollution and madness, and one after another, they died in various unspeakable forms. From a Sequence 2 traveler to a Sequence 4 magician, and even Sequence 5, Sequence 6. The pollution intensified, and uncontrolled roars killed one Beyander of the Abraham family after another. The Abraham family rapidly declined. Could Mr. Dorr feel the fear, madness, and helplessness of his descendants in their dying moments? He could. Those Abrahams, who were like children before him, helplessly shouted something. They heard his plea for help, and they indeed wanted to save him. But it was too late. They left no last words. Upon hearing the shouts, they were corrupted, became mad and out of control, and then, unable to withstand the mental influence, quickly died. Until the very last moment, after hearing the cry of, "Save me," they still wanted to rescue this madman, infected by madness and jointly exiled. Was he in pain? Yes. Did he regret it? No. The newly born other personality constantly tempted him. Why make them suffer so much? Believe in Mother, and they will naturally all be Mother's children. All things return to their roots, coming from Mother, and will eventually return to Mother's embrace. Isn't it better for them to believe in Mother? They are in such pain, can't you see? Aren't they your children? To kill them like this, an entire family falling into decline. Look, after losing the vast majority of high sequence individuals who could hear your voice, they became increasingly pained, they are afraid, many of them have died. Do you have the heart? While Mr. Dorr was in a tug of war with his newly born personality, he could occasionally hear the new personality's mocking tone, suppressing madness and excitement. That new personality was urging him to give up resisting and return to the embrace of the Mother Goddess. All things are great, the Mother of all living beings, is the common source of all things, all life. They are inherently a part of the Mother. Give up, Bertrand, return to Mother's embrace, everyone is inherently Mother's child. Give up, let them no longer suffer. Let the glory of the Abraham family be restored. We are Mother's believers, we are the ones who should stand at the apex of this world. Mr. Dorr was growing weaker and weaker. In this sealed land, although the power of Black Night Goddess and Storm Lord suppressed the fallen Mother Goddess, he was still isolated and helpless. The newly born consciousness from within grew stronger and stronger. The fallen Mother Goddess's power permeating the seal was not much, but it still allowed this new consciousness to strengthen. So much so that he was able to cooperate with the remnants of Fu Sheng Zan Huang Tian Zun's consciousness within his Beyander characteristics and uniqueness, jointly resisting the increasingly powerful new personality. It was just that it was still getting harder and harder. Fu Sheng Zan Huang Tian Zun's will could not be extinguished, but as another pillar, the fallen Mother Goddess, in order to contend with the remnants of Fu Sheng Zan Huang Tian Zun's mental will within an Angel King, even with remote influence, would only push the isolated and helpless Mr. Dorr further into an abyss of eternal damnation. He resisted the new personality while roaring to kill those who could hear his gibberish. Cannot hear. Cannot save me. Kill me. Kill me. Kill me. Absolutely not. Let him come to this planet. This is my homeland. This is my homeland. After escaping the fallen Mother Goddess's mental pollution, Mr. Dorr's condition had clearly improved significantly. The power of miracle quickly allowed him to break free from the patchwork of various mental pollutions, the divinity resisting the celestial worthy, and his accumulated negative emotions. Mr. Error was seated at the head of the bronze long table, watching Mr. Dorr weep uncontrollably, his expression fluctuating between pain, indifference, madness, and fear, finally settling into tranquility. Only after Mr. Dorr had completely calmed down did Mr. Error slowly begin to speak. That one's mental pollution cannot penetrate the Source Castle's blockade. This place is temporarily safe, so you don't have to worry about that one's pollution driving you into madness again. But the apocalypse is approaching, Mr. Dorr. I think you should know that after the barrier completely shatters, even if the diviner, thief, and student sequences are not coveted by those outer deities, they will inevitably target us to prevent the Lord of the Mysteries from appearing. Isn't that one's intention precisely this, which is why she secretly polluted me? Over thousands of years, Mr. Door had ample time to think clearly about many things. Some things he had once overlooked resurfaced, and from a retrospective perspective, the schemes became obvious. The fallen mother goddess did not want the Lord of the Mysteries to be born, and severing a sequence one beyond her characteristic and uniqueness from a sequence was the best option. Aemon and Antigonus were difficult to kill, so he, with his hobby of traveling the starry sky, became the best choice to prevent the Lord of the Mysteries' birth. Yes. Mr. Error nodded. He continued, your current state is special. This is just some unpolluted personality fragments that I peeled from your main body through some special means, and they are not stable. Although under the authority of Error, this part of your personality fragments can also be considered equivalent to your main body. Facing that one's shackles, I cannot use you to influence the Mr. Door who is still trapped in the storm. The fallen mother goddess had already discovered the problem. It wasn't impossible to forcefully confront the fallen mother goddess and kill the completely polluted Mr. Door, but if they truly did so, it would mean they would have to pay an even greater price. Currently, the Mr. Door sealed by the Black Knight goddess and the Storm Lord has completely become that one's loyal supporter. The Abraham family, who are of the student sequence, must be even more careful during the upcoming blood moon. The Abrahams. Without him mediating and increasing the degree of mental pollution to make all those who heard his voice lose control and die, it might not be long before many followers of the fallen mother goddess appear within the Abraham family. Mr. Door opened his mouth and slowly said, if they cannot withstand the pollution, killing them might also be a solution. Mr. Error was about to say, I've already sent someone to handle it, you don't need to worry. Quote. Wait, Mr. Door, what kind of ruthless words are you saying? He blinked, straightened his black silk top hat, and somewhat suspected he had misheard. Mr. Error, thinking he might have hallucinated, subtly glanced at the lowest position on the bronze long table. Tang also had a horrified expression of, what the heck is this? He instantly understood what Tang was thinking. The conservatives think the radicals are too conservative, and the radicals think the conservatives are a bit too radical. As expected of the mysticism world with its insane underlying rules. Tang quickly cross-referenced the situation with his system, checking Mr. Door's mental state. Are you sure the fallen mother goddess didn't leave some messy stuff on him? No way, absolutely no way. This is completely one extreme going to another. After a frantic check by the system and him, no hidden problems were found, and they finally breathed a sigh of relief. Alright, the patched-up personality still had huge problems. Although he had temporarily stitched together this former Angel King, now Mr. Magician, using the power of the Supreme Being in Miracle, this was ultimately not a long-term solution. Missing memories, shattered personality, plus a stitched-up mind. Clearly, they couldn't expect a mentally stitched-up monster to have normal thoughts. I have other arrangements for the Abrahams. Mr. Error could only tactfully reject the Abraham ancestors' conservative idea of taking all the Abrahams away in one go, indicating that he had other plans. Mr. Door nodded, not elaborating further on this matter. Becoming a follower of the fallen mother goddess was more terrifying than death. He would rather his descendants choose the latter between the two than become followers of the fallen mother goddess and become a danger. Mr. Error nodded and continued, currently, you cannot go to the real world. Your spirit and flesh are not perfectly fused and require some time to adjust. During this time, above the Source Castle, gatherings will be held regularly during certain periods. Perhaps you will find some interest in this, and it can also be used to pass the time and understand the situation in the real world. Gathering. Mr. Door pondered, his gaze sweeping past Mr. Error, at the head of the bronze long table and resting on the lowest position of the bronze long table. It was empty, yet Mr. Door spoke as if he saw something. It seems you are also a participant in the gathering. Tang was somewhat surprised that Mr. Door could sense his presence. He had originally only intended to quietly stay in his spot, munching on popcorn and slacking off. Since he had been seen through, Tang could only reluctantly lift his unobservable state and appear on the high-backed chair at the lowest end of the bronze long table. How did you discover me? I don't think my authority can be easily seen through. Otherwise, he would have died countless times already. After saying that, Tang paused, then suddenly realized, because of the power of the boon. He hadn't expected that Mr. Door, who had been disassembled and reassembled, was still sensitive to the power of the boon. A boon is a bestowal of power from the bestower to the boon recipient. When the boon recipient dies, under normal circumstances, the power of the boon on the boon recipient will return to the bestower. A boon is both a curse and a blessing. It establishes an almost unbreakable bridge between the boon recipient and the bestower. The boon recipient will continuously shift towards the state desired by the bestower. The higher the power of the boon, the more the boon recipient can feel the bestower's presence. The boon system is a completely different way of acquiring power from the potion system. As a cryptic servant, as a fate, Mr. Door, who had received the observer boon, sensed the closest bestower, which was Tang. Yes, Mr. Door said. This seemingly stern middle-aged man lowered his eyes and softly said, "My current state is somewhat similar to my former state." The fallen mother goddess had bestowed a portion of her power upon Mr. Door, allowing the new personality to suppress the main personality and take control of the situation. The fallen mother goddess's pollution gave him madness, but it also gave him power. Tang's supreme being, boon, was also like this, just less obviously mad. However, the essence of all boon powers was still the same: madness persists, loyal unto death. But it doesn't seem bad, Mr. Door added. I know what is good and bad. Now, this is already what I once greatly longed for. I don't hope to return to how I was 1,000 years ago. He couldn't go back now, and he knew it. That's good. Power itself has no good or bad, Tang smiled. Who knew Mr. Door would suddenly ask? I feel like you're very familiar. Have we met somewhere before? He looked at Tang very seriously, as if he had indeed met Tang somewhere. Well, we did meet once, with Amon. No, Mr. Door denied, it's not just that time. Not just that time. Tang was dumbfounded. He suddenly had a bad feeling. What's going on? Or rather, Mr. Door gazed at Tang, frowning, seemingly trying to find traces of Tang from his scattered, pieced-together memories. He spoke a name Tang had not expected, Rosal Gustav. He once established contact with me. Behind him, there was a strange shadow. That person, was it you? Mr. Error smiled, sitting on the high-backed chair, saying nothing. Tang, how many years ago was that old debt? To Mr. Door's almost conclusive question, Tang awkwardly scratched his head and chuckled. Well, there were reasons. Oh, he really recognized him. He had already been assassinated many times for sending Dao Dao to the polluted Mr. Door's mouth and helping the fallen mother goddess take a bite out of Dao Dao. Can we please not bring it up again? Mr. Door's mouth twitched, but he ultimately didn't ask, why did you do that? Isn't that clearly a traitor to the world? Sending a high-sequence Beander to the fallen mother goddess, didn't the Black Knight goddess and Storm Lord hammer you into the center of the earth? But thinking about it, this person, who scratched his head and smiled foolishly, avoiding the topic, was also an angel king, closely related to the Source Castle, and also closely related to the Black Knight goddess and Storm Lord who sealed him. Perhaps there were things he didn't know about. He was merely looking at the matter from the perspective of that sealed personality. Mr. Door somewhat stiffly and uncomfortably changed the subject. Since I am magician, what is your code name? Okay, if we don't talk about the Dao Dao incident, then we're all good colleagues. Actually, I haven't thought of one yet, since I haven't truly participated in a gathering above the Source Castle, Tang said. After all, peeking doesn't count. Mr. Error is just Mr. Error, and he is just him. These cannot be confused, can they? But since Mr. Door, you've asked. Tang casually reached forward and a tarot card appeared in his hand. Then I'll take this card. It was the card opposite the Fool card, which symbolized the beginning, among the 22 cards. It was the world card, symbolizing the end. This era, it seems, will have to be concluded by us. Backland. Klein, who had pulled Fur's wall, the great writer he had once met during a ritual magic exam and who had almost died, directly to the gray mist, now emerged from the washroom with a headache after hearing Fur's wall's story. He had stayed in the washroom a bit too long today. Next time, he'd switch to the bedroom. Seriously, why did it trigger now and not earlier or later? Klein shook his legs, which had gone a bit numb from squatting, and silently exhaled. Tang hadn't returned yet. He was responsible for investigating information on Intis spies, starting with the Zymerge gang, and was currently in a state of deep cover. Phew. Looking at the unusually red moon in the sky, Klein's heart was once again filled with worry. Perhaps I can write a letter to Mr. Flammel, inquiring about what happened to Miss Magician. The Blood Moon's curse, strange, mad whispers, and a magical item similar to the student sequence traveler. It all seemed abnormal. Thinking that there was nothing else to do tonight, Klein returned to his room, picked up paper and pen, and began to write the letter. Dear Mr. Flammel, today I encountered a Beander affected by the full moon's whispers, and I have some questions about it. He wrote a lot, like complaining about daily life to a fellow countryman, with a hint of a work report. After Klein recited, all incorrect errors, the honorific name belonging to Mr. Error, the letter spontaneously combusted and disappeared. Nicola had told him that if he needed to find him, he could just recite his honorific name. If he had a lot to say, writing a letter and then reciting it was also fine. No need to use a messenger to convey information. Phew, angels can indeed do many things we cannot comprehend. After writing the letter, Klein returned to his bed, intending to rest. Suddenly, the sound of a lock opening came from outside the door. Tang's back. Klein stopped his movement to get into bed, walked to the door, and first used divination to confirm that the person who returned was Tang Eggers before opening the door. Klein saw a very long tear in Tang's clothes and frowned. What happened? Did someone attack you? Yes. Tang closed the door, and after confirming that the ritual magic in the room was still effective and the attacker couldn't find him for now, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He complained, I don't know what kind of madness the Beyonders here in Backland are having. They attacked me like I dug up their ancestors' graves, desperately. What happened? Tell me the details. Klein, who had just been about to sleep, perked up. Chapter 365, 364 Ambush. Tang, who was enjoying the red moon by himself and planning to gradually devour the entire Zymerge gang to uncover the Intis ambassador's weakness, suddenly felt a spiritual tremor. As a marionettist, hiding in a remote building in the East District and concealing himself without directly exposing himself to the enemy was a basic operation for a marionettist. Hiding behind the scenes and observing the puppet show was one of the acting principles of a marionettist. He had always diligently and conscientiously played the role and attitude a marionettist should have. Everything went smoothly until just now, when one of his marionettes lost contact with him. Although it's a marionette made from an ordinary person, as a marionettist, my senses shouldn't be so dull that I only react after the marionette is killed. Tang thought to himself, his spirit body threads slightly moving, observing the surroundings through the eyes of other marionettes, even through a wall. A marionettist could only control a maximum of 3 marionettes. Since only the executioner in the Zymerge gang was a Beander, he had no choice but to use these cannon fodder to make do, reluctantly controlling 3 useless ordinary human marionettes. But even marionettes made from ordinary people possessed some of the marionettist's abilities. He had already cleared out a Zymerge gang stronghold in the East District. Even if a somewhat capable Beander passed by and noticed the problem here, they shouldn't just arbitrarily descend with justice, right? Are the Beyonders in Backland so idle? The spirit body threads subtly moved, and Tang saw the slain marionette through its eyes. It lay on the ground, fresh blood flowing from its forehead. A dark bullet hole pierced through the skull, fired from a great distance, a direct fatal blow, a headshot, before Tang and his marionettes could even react. Reaper. One must know that he hadn't yet, invented a dedicated sniper rifle. Long-range sniping could only be achieved by Beyonders of the Hunter sequence, using extraordinary abilities like Reaper, to achieve such a long-range headshot. Tang pondered for a moment, then his peripheral vision suddenly caught a figure reflected in a mirror beside him. He froze, his spiritual intuition triggered, and his figure suddenly vanished from the spot. A golden bullet pierced through where he had just stood, leaving a charred bullet hole. Was he discovered? The two marionettes quickly reverted to corpses and fell to the ground as the marionettist departed. Tang ignored the useless marionettes. In a battle between mid-sequence Beyonders, ordinary marionettes were completely ineffective. He stood not far from his previous position, subtle brilliant light swirling in his eyes. He slightly used the authority of Euclidean space to clearly see who was hiding in the mirror world. Triss Chick. Tang muttered. Why was this person looking for him now? Could it be that she finally couldn't take it anymore and planned to advance to marionettist, then forcibly jump to cryptic servant or time worm? As for the one who just fired, Tang, relying on his exceptionally high spirituality, once again foresaw where he would be shot and, with the clown's flexibility, cleverly dodged the bullet aimed at his head. But the assault against him was not just that. A figure suddenly darted out from the shadows. It was a hooded assassin, not Triss Chick, but merely a Sequence 7 witch. A pure witch, not a transsexual witch. Tisk, rare. The witch tried to restrict his movements, but as she approached him, Tang had already grabbed her spirit body threads, intending to directly hoist her up as a marionette. Don't even think about it. Someone shouted from the darkness, and behind him, intense light surged. Tang's spiritual intuition was triggered again. Relying on a grade 2 sealed artifact on him, his figure flickered again, vanishing from the spot, dodging the sudden burst of light storm from behind. A Sequence 6 Dawn Knight, a Sequence 7 Witch, a Sequence 4 Triss Chick, and a Sequence 5 Reaper hiding in the distance for long-range sniping. The setup is quite complete. Tank, assassination, observation, sniping. Are the resistance forces in Backland all at this level now? But speaking of it, he hadn't paid attention to the movements here for a long time. Brooks and Acherley were handling Backland's affairs. So, why are you targeting me? Tang, wearing the face of Executioner, Merceau, looked utterly perplexed. Logically speaking, his current identity was merely a Sequence 9 hunter, which shouldn't warrant such an elaborate effort to deal with him, right? Tang selectively ignored what he had just done. The Dawn Knight, who had raised his greatsword, ready to charge, heard Tang's question and scratched his head. He somewhat foolishly turned to the young woman in black assassin attire beside him and asked, "Yeah, Fatima, why are we targeting him? Isn't he some executioner or something, just an ordinary person?" "Idiot." The black-robed assassin cursed. "Look at his skill, how could he be an ordinary person? If he were an ordinary person, he would have been shattered into pieces the moment he faced the light storm, not standing here asking 3 questions in a row." Oh. The Dawn Knight, who didn't retort after being scolded, raised his greatsword and seriously told Tang, "You must be hiding your strength." The assassin, unable to bear it, really wanted to headbutt the Dawn Knight, but considering they were facing an enemy, she could only roar, "Hurry up and act." Triss Chick, hiding in the dark. Tang, who had been watching for a long time. These two aren't here to be funny, are they? Triss, how do you pick your teammates? Alright, jokes aside, the Dawn Knight quickly approached Tang. He intended to suppress him with his physique advantage, creating opportunities for his teammates. His magical item can only perform short-distance flashes, not long-distance teleportation. In the darkness, Triss Chick stared at what was happening outside the mirror, thinking calmly. Not long ago, Triss Chick happened to pass by here, noticed the anomaly, and after investigating, discovered a marionettist disguised as a member of the local gang, remaining here. Marionettist. Triss chewed on the name of this Sequence 5 potion from the Seer pathway. Backland has become riddled with holes and extremely dangerous due to a high-ranking Seer pathway Beyonder. The marionettist appearing here at this time might have a close connection with the person behind it. In their 2-month investigation, they found that the number of marionettes in Backland was far greater than they had imagined. Why hadn't such a large group of marionettes attracted the attention of the official Beyonders and the Loen royal family? Trischik suspected that the Loen royal family had some connection with the marionettist manipulating the marionettes from behind. Perhaps, the marionettist who controls the entire situation is also one of the culprits who planned the Backland Great Smog incident. She didn't think this life would be so different from her previous one, perhaps this was just a part of the facts she had overlooked. Then, it was not too late to correct this error now. Triss thought so, and therefore, when she discovered the trace of a marionettist, she did not hesitate to act. It must be said that Trischik, who had received the sinner boon from the Ring of Destiny, had an exceptionally keen spiritual intuition. And the eternal blight sequence, where the Ring of Destiny is located, is also adjacent to his own sequence. The law of Beyonder characteristics convergence really causes him some unexpected trouble. Tang thought so. He skillfully dodged two Reaper bullets aimed at his head using the clown's Beyonder ability, then propped himself up on the Dawn Knight's greatsword to pass him, preparing to deal with the witch first. A female witch. What is Triss trying to do? This kind of thing shouldn't appear now, the original witch would be angry. The spirit body threads of the Dawn Knight and the assassin who had plunged into darkness were exposed without reservation before Tang. For a marionettist whose true body was an angel king of the seer pathway, regardless of control speed or precision, even at the sequence 5 marionettist level, he was still faster, stronger, and more unfathomable than other Beyonders. He began to manipulate the spirit body threads of these two Beyonders, while also guarding against Trischik and the Reaper hidden in the dark. That Reaper. While manipulating the two Beyonders who had suddenly frozen, Tang noticed something. Medici is on him. Soren Einhorn Medici, influenced by fate, had reached an agreement with Tang. As a reasonable exchange, Tang chose to use a Conqueror Beyonder characteristic as payment, in exchange for Medici's help in the Mirror World Creator incident related to the original witch. Of course, the current Medici was too weak, so he wrote a new fate for him, giving him a Beyonder of the same sequence to serve as a temporary vessel. What a coincidence, fate truly is a marvelous thing. The process of marionetizing the two Beyonders was interrupted by a suddenly shattered mirror. Tang had already been guarding against Trischik hidden in the mirror. Seeing her join the battle, he continuously flashed using the sealed artifact on him to dodge snipes and Triss's attacks, while also quickly calculating the Reaper's sniping position based on the bullet trajectories. Then, he once again vanished from the sight of the others. This time it was a long-range teleportation. Tang appeared behind the sniper and quickly began to manipulate his spirit body threads. Dealing with the ranged caster first is common sense. Captain. Seeing the person disappear, both the Dawn Knight and the assassin realized the problem. Trischik's figure rapidly moved through the mirror world, her expression also becoming somewhat solemn. There was something strange about that marionettist. She had not divined any magical item capable of rapid teleportation on this person through her magic mirror divination before. In front of her, a sequence 4 despair, if there were no interfering forces, she didn't think her divination would be wrong. Yes, it wasn't there before, but it appeared after pulling it from the historical mist. Although it was only at the sequence 5 level, cheating was still possible if one could. Tang considered himself not a good person who liked to follow game rules. If he could commit fouls that wouldn't be caught, why wouldn't he? He wasn't some rigid old-fashioned person who didn't know how to adapt. Of course, to properly play the role of a marionettist, some things still couldn't be overdone. For example, suddenly pulling out a Dongfeng Express, and letting everyone be in the radiation without knowing what radiation is. After being targeted by Tang, the Reaper also reacted swiftly. He threw away the gun in his hand, drew a dagger from his tactical belt, and charged forward directly. The best way to deal with a marionettist was still close combat. Fast, ruthless, accurate, a one-shot solution, giving the opponent no chance to manipulate spirit body threads. It must be said that Beyonders of the Seer pathway, below sequence 4, have always been weak in close combat, belonging to the fragile mage type who would lose half their life if touched by someone skilled in close combat. Tang's gaze shifted slightly, sweeping over the gleaming dagger. The reaction was indeed fast. Behind him, a figure appeared in the full-length mirror. She wiped the mirror, and black flames instantly burned Tang's reflection in the mirror. This was a curse from the witch. At the same time, the witch's plague spread silently. An attack from both front and back. Tang had no intention of dodging. He had already prepared and released the item he had been holding in his hand. A talisman covered with strange symbols silently glowed faintly. As the dagger in front tore Tang's clothes, and the witch's curse and plague from behind were about to take effect, Tang's figure once again vanished from the spot. He teleported to another location, leaving behind the Reaper whose attack abruptly stopped and Triss Chick. After Tang left, their gazes immediately locked onto the talisman he had left behind. I borrowed a little, after all, I think ritual magic can achieve this. So, art is Patrick Star. The talisman suddenly began to glow brightly. The ritual magic rapidly unfolded based on the symbols drawn on the talisman. One talisman copied and multiplied into two talismans multiplied into 4. Although each copy of the talisman caused the symbols drawn on it to fade slightly, the exponentially increasing number of copies still made them numerous before the symbols completely faded. When the talismans stopped copying, new patterns appeared on each copied talisman. It was a nested ritual magic, adding the conditions for completing the second ritual magic at the end of the first ritual magic, thus completing a Matryoshka-style ritual casting. With this, after all the talismans rapidly increased to an overwhelmingly terrifying number in a short time, they exploded. With a boom, the entire building was completely destroyed, countless mirrors shattered, and everything, whether it was the real-world building or the mirror corresponding area behind the mirror, everything was utterly transformed into a wasteland after the explosion. Chapter 366, 365 Lunatics. Then I blew up the nearby buildings, and after confirming there were no pursuers, I ran back. At this point, Tang picked up his cup and took a small sip, moistening his throat. Klein put down the biscuit in his hand and, after listening to what Tang said, pursed his lips. Tang, are you saying they attacked you because you are a marionettist? Based on the divination results, that's indeed the case. Tang put down his cup. I'm also helpless. Who knew drinking a potion could lead to such an unprovoked disaster? That was truly the epitome of bad luck. But it sounds, Klein felt there was something strange about it, a bit odd. Without any Beander sequence conflicts, and given they weren't helpers of the gang behind the scenes, why would they attack you? This doesn't make sense. They have no reason to offend a sequence 5 Beander. Or rather, are there more secrets hidden within? For example, mistaking Tang for someone else. I felt the same way. They had no reason to attack me. In the absence of core interest conflicts, passionately killing a sequence 5 Beander whose background is unknown isn't a common occurrence. If it was just simple murder to obtain Beander characteristics, or to rob a sealed artifact, they shouldn't have targeted me, as they wouldn't know what sealed artifacts I carried or what negative side effects they had. In short, the value was less than the risk, yet they still did something unnecessary. Clearly, there's an inside story. So I briefly asked the person in charge of Miskatonic University here in Backland to find some relevant information. It should be here soon. As soon as Tang finished speaking, both of their spiritual perceptions stirred. They simultaneously looked towards the bay window that offered a view of the blood moon outside. Their equally high spiritual perception made their movements surprisingly synchronized. On the bay window, which overlooked the blood moon, ripples like water patterns floated. The back of the mirror seemed to lead to an unknown area, and a dark hue gradually occupied the bay window. See, their efficiency is indeed quick. Neither of them felt any danger from their spiritual perception. Tang smiled and stood up, walking over. His hand passed through the dark-hued mirror, reaching deep into the seemingly endless darkness within, and pulled out a document wrapped in a craft paper bag. He shook the document in his hand towards Klein. The information has arrived. Sending documents through a mirror. Klein was quite interested in this peculiar method. Tang replied casually while tearing open the craft paper bag. It should be a high-ranking Beander of the witch sequence who helped arrange it. Most of the confidential documents in Miskatonic University, besides being sealed and transported using various sealed artifacts, are mostly transported via spirit world teleportation by student Beyonders, or like this, by witch sequence Beyonders using mirrors. Tang placed the documents from the craft paper bag on the table and quickly scanned them, while simultaneously explaining to Klein, high-ranking Beyonders of the witch sequence control the authority of the mirror domain. Many of their curses also use mirrors, which is considered a fairly safe method of transmission in Miskatonic University. Aren't they afraid that items transmitted through mirrors might be intercepted? The witch sect should also have people who can manipulate mirrors, right? That's true, but, oh, by the way, Klein, I haven't told you yet, but the person in charge of Miskatonic University here in Backland is named Acherly Lancaster, a Sequence 3 Elder Witch. If our documents have a problem, if it's not an important document, it's fine, but if it is an important document, that lady will take action. Although it cannot be guaranteed that the Beyonders of the witch sect who can interfere with mirrors are inferior to Acherly Lancaster, doing such a thing under her watchful eye is equivalent to slapping Miskatonic University in the face. Slapping Miskatonic University in the face means that Mr. Error can come and do something. The equation holds, confidential documents are absolutely safe. Klein was a smart person, he also quickly understood the stakes involved. An Elder Witch. The potion name can actually reveal many things: immortality, eternal youth. As a Beander 2 sequences higher than Klein and a legitimate investigator of Miskatonic University, Tang knew far more mysticism knowledge and controlled more secrets than Klein. What Mr. Error said, rather than Tang being there to assist him, was more like a Beander 2 sequences higher taking him around Backland to broaden his horizons. In the world of mysticism, having a teacher and not having a teacher are two extremes. After all, for those wild Beyonders, some experiences gained at the cost of life are extremely precious. Life is precious, and if you don't court death, you won't die. But some things, even if you don't go looking for them, will still come to you. Tang finished reading the information and handed it to Klein. Elder Witch. The witch sequence's sequence 4 is called Despair, and sequence 3 is called Elder. It's said that Elder Witches are the longest-lived sequence among all demigods, immortal and eternally youthful. Speaking of which, among the Beander sequences we control, the Hunter sequence and the Witch sequence, these two adjacent sequences should also be quite complete, it's just that the side effects are a bit strong. I only know that the Witch sequence's sequence 7 involves a gender change. Klein said, if one of two adjacent sequences has this kind of abnormality, then the other one is pretty much the same. Tang placed the read documents on the table. The Hunter sequence's sequence 4, the potion name is Iron-Blooded Knight. Beyonders at this sequence, whether male or female, will eventually become male. Klein. This. Sure enough, it's definitely not just one sequence that's a trap. But since Beyonders of adjacent sequences can switch between each other at high sequences. So, a male who becomes female at the witch stage of sequence 7 in the assassin sequence, as long as he works hard to advance to sequence 4, can switch back to sequence 4 of the Hunter sequence and become male again. Yes, but as far as I know, most of those high-ranking Beyonders of the witch sequence haven't done that. Why? I don't know, Tang said, it's an adult matter. Klein, don't ask too much. Klein. Although he would later eat at the children's table, Klein still learned the names of the high sequence witch sequence potions and more extraordinary knowledge. So, the difference between having someone guide you and not having someone guide you is really huge. He sighed inwardly, then picked up the information sent by the Backland investigator from the table and quickly flipped through it. The Rebel Alliance, a group of lunatics, they often believe that the people around them are not right, and then slaughter their relatives and friends, just because they think these people have already died, but have strangely come back to life. Klein looked up in surprise. How can this? It's very similar to those lunatics confined in St. Peter Hospital. I think so too. Tang shrugged. In Tingen City, the number of people suffering from this disease has been increasing year by year in recent years. There are many similar patients undergoing long-term mental treatment in the psychiatry clinics of St. Peter Hospital. Unexpectedly, this mental illness trend has also spread to Backland. Tang propped his chin. After professional psychological profiling, this group of people active in Backland, who call themselves the Rebel Alliance, have a high degree of similarity with the persecuted paranoid patients confined in St. Peter Hospital's psychiatry department who say things like, "This world isn't right," or, they want me dead." These people are clearly all dead. It's as if the whole world has undergone an unpredictable mutation, but if what they say truly happened, the church, the royal family, the military, and the investigators would have noticed the problem long ago. Klein thought about it and felt that this was indeed the case. But, since such people have appeared in both Tingen and Backland, isn't that a bit too coincidental? He asked, as if seeking confirmation. It could be influenced by a sealed artifact, or guided by an evil god. In the world of mysticism, widespread group abnormalities are very common. These lunatics, who claim to see the truth of this world, are hidden in Backland. Backland is very complex, and they are good at hiding. Official extraordinary, except for the first few who were caught and sent to St. Peter Hospital for treatment, haven't seen any trace of the others. On the contrary, this time, I don't know whether to call it lucky to have discovered the whereabouts of these guys, or unlucky. Tang didn't find the emergence of these lunatics particularly strange. Instead, he was still bothered by another matter. But now, what I find strange is, why did they attack me? The topic returned to the beginning. Why did these people, who called themselves the Rebel Alliance, attack a member of an official extraordinary organization? And it was with a moth to a flame attitude, every move aimed at his life. Was it worth killing a spirit medium? Was it really necessary? Although Tang hadn't revealed his identity, a Sequence 5 Beander, no matter what, couldn't possibly make them act as if they had a mortal grudge the moment they met, right? Did these people leave their brains at home? Either the identity is special, or the person is special, Klein said. I've never seen these people, Tang denied Klein's second guess. Then it must be a special identity. We just arrived in Backland not long ago. If the investigator identity hasn't been exposed, there's probably only one possibility. Tang quickly made the connection. You mean, my identity as a marionettist is problematic in the eyes of these mentally troubled guys? He rested his left hand on his chin. It shouldn't be, right? It couldn't be that these guys think everyone around them is a marionette manipulated by a marionettist. That's why they acted so abnormally, believing absurd things like resurrection from the dead were happening in the real world. But if you think about it, if your friends, your family, all the acquaintances and strangers you've met, whether ordinary people or beyonders, whether commoners or nobles, or all marionettes, well, honestly, I'd go crazy too. Klein felt a chill run down his spine. He rubbed the goosebumps on his arms and gave a wry smile. That's not a funny joke. After the Sunwell mineral pollution outbreak in Tingen City, where many people were dissolved in the Sunwell mineral, the marionettists of Miskatonic University took action to stabilize the minds of the remaining living people in the entire city to prevent panic. Under the guidance of Mr. Error, this disaster was vaguely processed in the memories of ordinary people. They would mostly only believe that Tingen City had previously experienced a major natural disaster, and would not, and could not, associate the people they occasionally passed on the street with the fact that they had now become marionettes placed there by marionettists to make up for the numbers and digest potions. But these marionettes and living people still had significant differences. Anyone who paid close attention could sense an indescribable abnormality about the people they occasionally brushed past on the street. Klein had also experienced this sense of abnormality. He sometimes dreamt of its bizarre and terrifying appearance in nightmares. Sequence 4 of the Seer Pathway, no wonder it's called Trickster. However, Klein didn't know if the Seer Pathway at high sequences would perfect the control of marionettes, making them impeccable in appearance, form, movement, and language, whether in public or private. After all, he was still only a Sequence 7. Klein told Tang his guess. High-ranking Beyonders of the Seer pathway are not in Backland. This level of marionette manipulation cannot leave no trace. Your idea is not valid. Tang denied Klein's guess. I'm not entirely clear about the specific situation, but Mr. Error did come to Backland at that time to conduct this kind of investigation. At least, a high-ranking Beyonder of the Seer pathway who could so silently deceive all the high-ranking Beyonders in Backland is not in Backland. All right. Klein nodded, agreeing with Mr. Error's judgment. Although he still had a somewhat inexplicable sense of strangeness lingering in his heart, unable to dissipate for a long time. Ultimately, this impractical idea was still suppressed deep within his heart, with no chance to see the light of day. The next morning, Klein went out, ready to continue his detective career. However, he watched a beautiful-faced lady pass him for the second time and couldn't help but frown slightly. This is. Klein clutched the charm in his pocket and, with a normal expression, went to help his employer solve trivial matters and build the reputation of his detective agency. As he scanned the window of the employer's house, he saw a face he had just seen. That person stood quietly in a dark, mysterious space behind the mirror, and only Klein could see her. A witch. Klein secretly became vigilant. Yesterday, he had just heard Tang say he encountered a witch who could travel through mirrors, and today he encountered one. Chapter 367, 366 The Witch Who Might Be a Transmigrator. The witch didn't seem to have any aggressive intentions. Klein walked on the main road after leaving his employer's house, calmly thinking of a countermeasure. This was on the main road. As a place where a battle could attract the attention of official extraordinary, even if that witch had any ill intentions, she would have to weigh the Beyonders, or even angels, stored in Backland. However, Klein couldn't be sure what kind of strange extraordinary abilities a Beyonder possessed. Perhaps there were mirror illusions with a wider range, allowing her to abduct him and deal with him slowly. Such a possibility was not lacking. Klein had been secretly on guard the entire time. At the slightest abnormality, he would immediately attract the attention of official extraordinary. But so far, that person hadn't shown any intention of attacking him. Yet, letting this fellow follow him all the way home made Klein feel that there was a big problem. Never mind my thoughts. Tang, who just fought her yesterday, might be recognized on the spot. Klein's spiritual premonition told him that this witch was indeed the rebel witch who fought Tang yesterday. Bringing her back was not an option. Not bringing her back, he couldn't deal with her. Or, bring her back, but notify Tang before returning, so he can prepare in advance. Can a prepared ritualist deal with a Beyonder across a sequence? Well, that's a good question. Klein didn't know, and he also felt there was no need to gamble on such a matter. Or, directly recite Mr. Flammel's honorific name to attract his attention. Nicola, as a Sequence 1 Archangel, a subordinate god walking on Earth, although a fellow countryman, it might not be good to bother him for such a matter. Similar to the first situation, now was not a critical moment. If he truly encountered a life-threatening danger, bothering a fellow countryman would be excusable. After all, Mr. Flammel seemed to be very busy recently. Or, Klein thought of the new honorific name Tang told him last night. As long as she was in the Backland area, that lady could also provide help. A Sequence 3 Elder Witch against a suspected Sequence 4 Despair Witch should provide a sequence-level suppression, right? If it couldn't be resolved, he could contact Mr. Flammel then. Since she is very likely one of the members of the rebel army, reciting an honorific name to attract attention is naturally a very reasonable thing. Klein didn't feel ashamed at all for asking for help. In a situation where he had an organization and support, not acting like a fox borrowing a tiger's might would be foolish. The Witch of the Past, the Ancient One with eternal life, the Observer of Backland, the Guardian in the Mirror, the incorrect representative of error. Walking on the street, Klein walked while pulling down his hat, silently reciting this honorific name in Ancient Hermes. A suspected rebel witch Sequence Beyonder is following me. I'm not sure of her intentions. Klein's recitation received no response, but the witch standing silently observing in the mirror beside him seemed to sense something. Having followed Klein all the way, the witch, located behind the mirror in a mirror world invisible to ordinary people, quickly disappeared. Through his spirit vision, Klein saw countless, boundless black strands of hair completely filling the mirror's surface that reflected the witch. The black hair surged like a tide. In a short while, Klein noticed that in all the mirror worlds behind the mirrors on the entire street, invisible to ordinary people, those hairs swiftly swept through, trying to catch an enemy that seemed not to exist. A mirror not far away suddenly shattered. Pedestrians on the road simultaneously looked over, and some screamed, clearly startled by the sudden situation. This was just an isolated incident. The battle in the mirror world did not leak much into the outside world. Klein's steps remained unchanged. As a clown at Sequence 7, his control over his expressions was always excellent. Klein ignored this sudden situation, like a passerby with something to do, hurrying through the crowd and walking quickly towards the detective agency. When Klein walked past this street, his peripheral vision finally caught another strange change in the mirror beside him. Countless hairs retracted once more. In the illusory and deep world behind the mirror, which seemed to have no end, a gentle-faced lady appeared. The smooth, long hair that filled all the mirror worlds on this street shortened again, becoming waist-length black hair. The gentle-faced lady with such beautiful long hair nodded towards Klein, then her figure gradually dissipated, and the mirror returned to normal. The witch who had followed him all the way had disappeared. I wonder if that lady caught the rebel witch, or did she just drive her away? Klein pondered. He didn't know why this rebel witch would seek him out, and since she did, why didn't she attack him, but instead just watched and observed him? A strange illusion quickly helped Klein organize his clues. He lowered his brows and quickened his pace slightly on the road, not even buying the ice cream cake he promised Tang, and directly returned to the detective agency. As he walked, Klein's brain was also rapidly working. This witch knows me. Last night, Tang, who fought this witch, confirmed that he himself was not followed, and the ritual magic in the detective agency was also not triggered. Sherlock Moriarty's reputation would not attract the attention of a suspected Sequence 4 powerhouse, but this witch knew Klein. No, it wasn't Klein she knew, but the identity of Sherlock Moriarty. Klein knew that his face had been adjusted by a faceless. In Backland, no one could connect Klein Moretti with Sherlock Moriarty, except for those extremely familiar with him. And this name was not randomly chosen by Klein. If it were in the era before his transmigration, someone could indeed confirm the abnormality of their identities based on this name and the name Tang disguised, due to the astonishing coincidence. A transmigrator. Did she find me because of this surname? Is that why she exposed herself to me, wanting to confirm my and Tang's identities? Such a guess made Klein feel as if an electric current shot through his spine. The only known transmigrators currently were him, Rosal the Great, and Mr. Error. If this witch was also a transmigrator. All incorrect errors, the embodiment of fallacies and loopholes, leading the hour hand of fate. In the end, he still needed to recite the honorific name to resolve this matter. I am here. Not long after, Mr. Error's voice sounded in his ear. He did not appear beside Klein, but rather descended a portion of his will in a parasitic state. Nicola had already communicated this with Klein, and Klein agreed to this method of communication. Of course, in non-essential situations, he still preferred to communicate by writing letters. After all, being parasitic always felt a bit strange. However, Klein felt that he had to report this matter as soon as possible to find an answer. Klein, what's the matter? It's like this, Mr. Flammel. After Klein recounted his observations and experiences to Mr. Error, in his mind, Mr. Error pondered for a moment and said, I will investigate this witch. If this witch found you just by your surname and made this series of abnormal actions, she could indeed be a transmigrator, or someone closely connected to a transmigrator. After all, for some reason, Rosal the Great's cultural spread did not leave behind stories related to Klein's fake identity name. Klein asked again, Mr. Flammel, how many transmigrators are there in this world? I can only tell you that the number is not small, and as far as I know, many transmigrators have held high positions. I will tell you these things when you reach the corresponding level. Seeing the rented detective agency close by, Klein slowly exhaled and nodded. As a mere Sequence 7, he was still too weak. Okay, contact me if anything happens. Mr. Error's voice then disappeared. After Klein returned to the detective agency, he saw Tang standing inside, and at the same time, there was someone he had just met briefly in the agency. Ms. Acherley. Klein dutifully greeted the Sequence 3 powerhouse. I'll go get pastries, Tang said. You two chat. Please sit. Ms. Acherley sat in the seat usually used to entertain customers. She kindly nodded to Klein, gesturing for him to sit down. Klein sat down somewhat reservedly. Before he could speak, Ms. Acherley herself began to explain the subsequent events. I didn't catch that witch. She escaped. Yes, she is indeed a Sequence 4 despair witch. I can feel that she has completely digested the despair potion and is a very experienced Beander. Even a Beander of a higher sequence in the same pathway would find it difficult to kill her in a sudden encounter without paying a price. Why did that witch come looking for me? The matter of transmigrators was a small secret between him and Mr. Error, so there was no need to discuss it openly in front of others. Therefore, the necessary performance still had to be given. Ms. Acherley shook her head and said softly, I'm not too sure either. This witch only recently arrived in Backland. Unfortunately, she is not from the witch sect. She seems to be a wild Beander who only joined the rebel organization after arriving in Backland. Not a witch from the witch sect, and only joined the rebel organization after arriving here. Yes, Ms. Acherley nodded. You know, in the current Beander circle, Sequence 4 Beyonders without an organization are extremely rare. Even if such Beyonders exist, their ultimate fate usually only has two outcomes. She slowly said, either they are recruited by an organization, or they are killed on the spot and their Beander characteristics are recovered. The mysticism world is truly difficult to navigate. Klein thought for a moment and asked in the form of a question, is this to prevent them from harming ordinary people? There's that reason, but more so because such Beyonders are highly unstable, like you and Tang Eggers. Tang returned at this moment with pastries and freshly brewed tea, also sitting down in a chair. Ms. Acherley picked up the tea Tang had just brought, took a sip, and continued, the Sequence 4 potion name for the diviner pathway is Trickster, and the corresponding mythical creature is a spirit worm. Compared to other Beyonders at the Beander level, the diviner pathway's Sequence 4 requires more anchors to stabilize their state. Perhaps you don't understand the purpose of anchors. You can ask Tang about these questions. Klein looked at Tang, who nodded, indicating that he would tell him later. Klein continued to listen to Ms. Acherley's explanation. In short, most of those Beyonders without organizational affiliation will lose their self-control and become lunatics who endanger cities and countries during the process of further advancement due to various problems. Ms. Acherley continued, let's go back to the original topic. This witch, who doesn't belong to any official organization or secret order, is highly unstable. We must find her as soon as possible, either to control her, or we can only specifically kill her on the spot. She had clearly heard from Tang about the rebel army's attack on him yesterday. Attacking a Miskatonic University investigator was something Miskatonic University would obviously not let slide. By the way, how is your mission progressing? Tang picked up a pastry and said, currently, we can only confirm that no party has taken the third-generation differential engine manuscript out of Backland. We lean towards the Forsac Empire's people having obtained it, but with the obstruction from Intis, the Ruin military, and Heart of Mechanical, it's not that easy for them to safely transport the manuscript out. Ms. Acherley nodded, indeed, this is quite a difficult mission. You can contact me in necessary moments, and I will provide you with assistance. Okay, madam. Okay, madam. Klein and Tang said in unison. This was a life-saving leg to hold onto. Perhaps when the powerful fought, the two of them could squat down and watch the show. Although Miskatonic University should maintain its neutral stance on the third-generation differential engine manuscript matter. But this matter wasn't something that couldn't be pushed out, letting others take the blame. You know I did it. I also know you know I did it. But on the surface, I didn't do it. What can everyone do even if they know? Tear off the disguise. For such matters, the Aurora Order could claim responsibility. It seems Miskatonic University and the God of Craftsman Church don't have a good relationship. Klein secretly mused. They watched Ms. Acherley leave, then slumped into chairs, losing their proper posture. So tired. Chapter 368, 367 inches 3-Nose Warrior, Master Luo. Time flew by in a flurry of activity. Tang had already organized the general information regarding the third-generation difference engine manuscript, analyzed the specific situation, provided some suggestions, and submitted the compiled data to Miskatonic University. Miskatonic University was highly concerned about the third-generation difference engine manuscript. They did not want the Fursak people to take the manuscript out, nor did they want Intis, the Ruin military, or organizations like the Heart of Mechanical to obtain it. Although Intis, on their part, probably also didn't want the God of Craftsman Church to acquire the manuscript, they should be a community of shared interests. However, the university's request is to have the Intis ambassador, Bertrand Jean Martin, die, and to take the third-generation difference engine manuscript without the Heart of Mechanical or the Ruin military noticing. If necessary, the manuscript can be destroyed. Mr. Error chose to flip the table. He didn't choose Intis, the Ruin military, or the God of Craftsman Church. He intended to keep it all to himself and eliminate everyone. Upon receiving the university's reply, Tang handed the letter to Klein, signaling him to read it. It's no wonder the university made this decision. Although they share a common interest in not wanting the God of Craftsman Church to prosper, regarding this Intis ambassador, hey, fellows who fancy themselves high society truly deserve to be impaled 10,000 times. Forcing minors, setting up gambling dens, usury, human trafficking, the accumulation of these crimes would justify 1,000 deaths. Of course, before the struggle for the third-generation difference engine manuscript, such a person wouldn't die. These big figures always valued balance and never took these matters to heart. But now it was different. The Ruin military and the Heart of Mechanical would definitely want this Intis ambassador to die cleanly. While the Ruin military and the Heart of Mechanical are clashing with Intis, we can push the blame for killing this ambassador onto either of them. As long as it doesn't publicly link back to us, there won't be any problems. Tang said. As long as it didn't involve Miskatonic and break the unspoken rule, then even if Intis, Ruin, and the God of Craftsman Church had any thoughts, they could only suppress them. The God of Craftsman was in a poor state, and Intis and Ruin had no Beander who could contend with Mr. Error. No matter how unwilling they were powerless. At least Mr. Error showed them some face by not breaking the unspoken rule, didn't he? Klein meticulously examined the information provided by the university. Hearing this, he frowned, but with our strength, I think it would be very difficult for us to kill this Intis ambassador, especially with multiple bodyguards protecting him. We don't need to do it ourselves. Today, we are going to meet some people. They are the main force. Tang said frankly. Who? Klein asked curiously. They are said to be from the South Continent and have some connection with Miskatonic. They happen to be in Backland right now. Ms. Acherley wants us to meet them and inform them of these specific details. Night, Braveheart's Bar. Tang and Klein separately used their faceless Beander abilities or sealed artifacts to adjust their appearances, ensuring they wouldn't be recognized as the two highly efficient great detectives and his assistant, before entering. After greeting the bar owner, they were led into a room. Inside the room, several people were playing cards. A marionette, wearing a complex and exquisite black Gothic court gown, a small black soft hat, with light gold hair and azure eyes, and a delicate face, sat motionless in a chair in the corner. After the door closed from the outside, the room became somewhat eerie. Despite there being quite a few people, Klein still felt a chilling aura rushing towards his face. Klein. No, was the air conditioning on here? It was a bit cold. The people playing cards stopped their actions as soon as the door closed and Klein and Tang entered. Among them, a man with an unusually pale complexion looked over and said in a low, somewhat hoarse voice. People from Miskatonic. Yes. Klein nodded. Tang stood behind Klein, acting as an assistant, and did not speak. Very good, you are punctual. The pale-faced man nodded. As he spoke, the others playing cards with him stared at Klein and Tang unblinkingly, their soulless eyes glinting with a subtle chill. Like zombies controlled by others in an old horror movie. Klein knew that although he had never actually seen them, he had learned about them in mysticism popular science. These people should be a type of monster called a living corpse. And sequence 6 of the prisoner sequence was named Living Corpse. The information on this mission's target is here. You can take a look. Klein took out a thick stack of documents from the leather bag he carried and handed them to a young man with an empty expression who had already risen from the card table. The young man took the documents but didn't look at them himself, instead handing them to the pale-faced man who had spoken first. During the transfer, half of the documents suddenly floated as if they had a will of their own, flying towards the light gold-haired lady in the corner who resembled a marionette. Klein had brought 2 copies of the information, and now the other copy just happened to float towards the corner. Klein was somewhat surprised to see the lady in the corner receive the documents and begin to read them quickly. Is this one alive? He thought of what Tang had told him before they left. The collaborators with the university are Beyonders from the Restraint faction of the South Continent Rose School. In order to hunt down Beyonders from the Indulgence faction, the high-ranking members of the Rose School agreed to cooperate with Miskatonic. In the early Fifth Epoch, the situation in the South Continent had always been very tense. It only gradually stabilized after the leader of the Indulgence faction, the god of depravity Suer, was expelled from the South Continent. Beyonders of the Indulgence faction, whose ideology was completely at odds with the Restraint faction, had since been hiding in the North Continent, rarely appearing before the general public. Members of the Restraint faction had come to the North Continent this time for some purpose, responsible for tracking down members of this branch. Working with us are a Sequence 4 marionette from the Prisoner sequence and a Sequence 5 vengeful spirit from the Prisoner sequence. They are not weak. Marionettes and vengeful spirits are quite powerful, elusive assassins, capable of dealing with that Intis ambassador. An assassination by a demigod, an assassination by a demigod skilled in stealth. The Intis ambassador, merely a Sequence 6 schemer, would be taken out in one wave as soon as they got close, no matter how many guards of varying sequences he had around him. It would be useless. Even if there were demigods secretly watching, with a moment of carelessness, the Restraint faction's demigod could take the Intis ambassador's head, making him cosplay Louis XVI. We have received the information. The light gold-haired lady in the corner spoke, her voice ethereal. When do you need us to act? The sooner the better. We can also provide you with other assistance besides intelligence. Klein said concisely. The pale-faced man nodded, still speaking in a hoarse voice. We will deal with Bertrand Jean Martin as soon as possible. We hope Miskatonic will also uphold your promise. Promise? What promise? A hint of confusion flashed in Klein's eyes, but he still nodded calmly on the surface. Mr. Fool's high-level demeanor was fully displayed at this moment. Couldn't he lose his nerve? You can call me Marich, and she is Sharon. If anything comes up later, you can come directly to the Bravehearts bar to find us. We will also inform you in advance before we make our move. All right. After settling the matter, Klein and Tang did not linger. They left the Bravehearts bar and, on their way back, bought 2 hand-grabbed pancakes from the street to solve their dinner problem. On the bustling streets, carriages and pedestrians were not few. Sunwell or lamps, similar to those in Tingen City, brought brightness and warmth, dispelling the darkness and countless fears in this city of 10,000 capitals. While eating the hand-grabbed pancake with spicy strips, Klein secretly ignited the charm in his pocket with his spirituality, creating an environment that blocked sound. A Sequence 4 demigod, plus a Sequence 5 vengeful spirit, should be enough to take care of that Intis ambassador, right? That's enough. Tang swallowed the pancake in his mouth. They're fighting tooth and nail. Unless they're stupid, the Beyonders around that Intis ambassador will definitely be sent out to snatch the manuscript. Adding those helpers, they might not even win against a surprise attack from a vengeful spirit, and with a sequence 4 added, he's dead for sure. Klein blinked. All right then. It seemed this big trouble was resolved. The two chatted and laughed, returning to the detective agency with great ease. The Intis spy organization was finished. The issue regarding the third-generation difference engine manuscript was also about to be resolved. They currently had only one mission left. Find Lanruis, the fraudster hiding in Backland who indirectly caused the deaths of Dunn Smith and others, and the descent of the true creator's son into the real world. To do this, they first had to find traces of the Aurora Order. A few days later, Tang and Klein received news that Sharon and Marich were going to act. On the same day, the struggle for the third-generation difference engine manuscript reached its most intense phase. The situation in Backland was changing rapidly. The two public detectives and private investigators, diviners, hid in the detective agency, awaiting the final outcome. Ms. Acherley, who was stationed in Backland and was publicly Miskatonic's highest leader, expressed great concern about this matter and was also drawn into it. After tonight, Intis will need a long period of wrangling before they can settle on an ambassador to Backland again. It was raining slightly tonight. Klein closed the open window, while Tang swayed back and forth in a rocking chair. In the corners of the room, a male servant and a female servant stood, motionless. They were marionettes Tang had recently replenished. The marionetist's abilities are indeed quite peculiar. Klein admired the night view outside the window for a moment, then sat back down in his chair, looking at the two motionless marionettes in the corner. Tang said, "The marionettist's marionette transformation is indeed called one of the most difficult Beyonder abilities to guard against below demigod level, and the higher the sequence in this sequence, the more bizarre the abilities. By the way, how's your magician acting principle summary coming along? I feel the potion is digesting, but the digestion speed isn't very fast. I lack large, active acting opportunities." Klein shook his head, quite helpless about this. Sequence 7 was not like Sequence 8 and Sequence 9. The time required for the potion acting of this sequence, unless he encountered a good opportunity, would mean he wouldn't finish digesting the magician potion until at least next March. If there are no conditions, then create them. Tang shrugged. Backland is also a big stage, you'll always find opportunities. Mr. Error had already given Klein the Sequence 6 potion formula before he left, and the corresponding Beyonder characteristic was also given to him in the form of a sealed artifact. Once the magician potion formula was fully digested, Klein would be able to immediately advance to Sequence 6 Faceless. The two chatted while attending to their own matters. Tang chose to read a book written by the great writer Furs Wall, while Klein picked up the Backland Daily. The peaceful atmosphere didn't last long. Outside the detective agency, someone knocked on the door. Tang closed the book in his hand and sat up from the rocking chair. At this hour, who would be knocking? A male servant silently walked over, opened the door, and upon seeing a police officer, he revealed a polite smile. "Officer, may I help you? It's like this, we need to collect information on residents living in Backland. You are newcomers who arrived in Backland a while ago, aren't you? For newcomers, we must register your specific information and report it. It was too busy a while ago, and we only have free time now." The landlord had told them about this yesterday. At the camp, as the police officer in the black and white checkered uniform scanned the interior through the male servant's shoulder, Klein didn't pay much attention, but Tang's gaze shifted slightly, seeming to find it somewhat amusing. "All right, officer." The male servant dutifully opened the door, allowing the police officer, who claimed to be collecting resident information, to enter. Another female servant went to the pantry to prepare tea and snacks. Klein and Tang sat in their usual spot for meeting clients. The police officer, without ceremony, strode over and sat down. "You are Sherlock Moriarty and John Watson, from John I County, right?" Silently, one spirit thread after another emerged above Klein and Tang's heads. The police officer in the black and white checkered uniform silently pulled a smile at the corner of his mouth. He suddenly grabbed the spirit threads above Klein and Tang's heads. Then he discovered. Pull, can't pull. Rosago. Tang, watching a marionettist pull his spirit threads, revealed a strange smile. What are you doing, little brother? No marionette, no intelligence, no backup, just showing up to pull the spirit threads of an angel king from his own sequence. Chapter 369, 368 Unspeakable. Rosago's expression grew increasingly solemn, then increasingly terrified, as he tugged on those seemingly unremarkable spirit-body threads. What is this thing? Whose spirit-body threads was he grasping? You, officer, do you have a problem? Klein looked with a strange expression at the officer, played by Rosago, who had just been speaking eloquently. His confident expression had instantly turned stiff. At this moment, Rosago clearly had no mind to maintain his disguise. His spiritual intuition was like it had taken an adrenaline shot, wildly warning him, frantically indicating the kind of risks hidden here. Escape. Ignoring everything else, Rosago, with an utterly terrified expression, tried to stand up and flee. Monster. Monster. In his vision, the originally normal spirit-body threads extending from these two people gradually transformed into transparent, extremely stretched insectoids. Sparkling, dazzling lights flickered on these insectoids, dreamlike and even somewhat beautiful. If it had only reached this point, Rosago could have dismissed it as a hallucination. But something else appeared in his mind. Sequence 4, Trickster, Potion Formula, the main eye of a tricky abomination, the true soul body of a spirit world plunderer, supplementary materials. Sequence 3, Ancient Scholar, Potion Formula, Ritual, completely detached from reality for at least 300 years, consuming the potion after one has become history, no longer belonging to the current era. Sequence 4 and Sequence 3 Potion Formulas. If Rosago had known these before, he would have been overjoyed. But, in this situation, this level of knowledge had entered his mind in such a terrifying and bizarre manner. This isn't normal, this isn't normal. Several spirit-body threads, which had turned into stretched insectoids, drifted towards him on their own, unmanipulated by him. These spirit-body threads wrapped around his fingertips, seemingly inviting him, a marionettist, to pluck them. But, Rosago's pupils dilated once more. His attempt to flee paused, and the voice in his mind suddenly amplified. It was an empty voice, like from the Supreme, echoing within the potion. Upon hearing this empty voice, the body of the person acting as an assistant next to Sherlock Moriarty began to slowly deform after the spirit-body threads wrapped around him. Transparent insectoids filled that outwardly unremarkable body, like a monster wearing a human skin, hidden among the crowd. He sat there nonchalantly, a faint smile on his face. That smile also transformed into two clusters of insectoids representing eye sockets, and a curved, transparent worm. This isn't a living person. His brain froze in place, mechanically trying to pull something out. Anything, anything. Leaping flames, air cannons. Yes, and paper figures. No, he no longer had paper figure substitutes. He was clearly only dealing with sequence beyonders no higher than sequence 7, and with no background, so why did he fail? Why did he become like this? Why was there such a thing here? No, the officer played by Rosago mumbled, his movements knocking over things on the table, and his empty eyes at this moment indicated that he was gradually descending into a state of madness and loss of control. He was losing control. Klein's spiritual intuition was only now triggered. He looked with a horrified expression at the officer who had just been speaking eloquently. The officer, who claimed to be conducting a census, now had transparent flesh buds wriggling frantically on his face. His expression was chaotic and insane, looking as if he had faced the most terrifying thing in the world, his mind collapsing, on the verge of turning into a monster. He's a Beander. He's losing control. Klein realized this, his expression sinking. He was about to activate the ritual magic in the room to throw this guy out, but the marionettes standing on either side were faster than him. As Rosago's body showed abnormalities, they immediately pinned the disguised marionettist to the ground. No need for ritual magic. He's done for too. Tang's voice made Klein withdraw the hand that was about to trigger the ritual magic. Rosago writhed frantically on the ground, his expression pained, transparent fluid continuously oozing from the wriggling flesh buds on his face. Seeing this scene, Klein took a step back with a somewhat horrified expression. He involuntarily looked at Tang, who was still sitting there, calmly drinking tea. What's wrong with him? A very common phenomenon. Tang put down his cup and patted his dust-free clothes, saying, he was just tugging on our spirit-body threads. I was wondering why, of all times, someone would come for a census tonight. Mr. Error placed something on me to ensure our safety. Tang said casually, and this is a Beyander of the seer sequence. Clearly, he hasn't reached the demigod level. He glanced at Rosago, who was pinned tightly to the ground, limbs spasming, body twitching, out of control but still staring unblinkingly at him, and chuckled. So, he saw things he shouldn't have seen, and heard voices he shouldn't have heard. The flesh buds on Rosago's face seemed to hear Tang's words. They all split open, blood and cerebrospinal fluid continuously flowing out. His entire face, as if self-destructing, exploded into a bloody crater. His eyes, nose, ears, mouth, and other areas became bloody, blurred holes, and faintly, through these bloody holes, one could even see his brain, which had begun to turn gray. Meaningless sounds came from Rosago's mouth. In his eyes, the humanoid monster made of countless insectoids stood up and slowly approached him. Don't come over, don't you come over. His expression was utterly terrified, but every word he spoke was only a meaningless, sound. His vocal cords had mutated, unable to produce normal sounds anymore. The monster, however, seemed to understand his words, chuckled softly, walked over, and squatted in front of him. A gentle, slightly smiling voice sounded in Rosago's ear. Did your teacher never tell you that a magician never performs without preparation? No prepared paper figure substitutes, no prepared marionettes. You even thought Klein was just a sequence 7 magician, so you simply didn't prepare anything and visited so rashly. I'm a bit worried about the Intis Intelligence Department's training strategy. Should Beyonders of the Seer sequence like this be completely erased from this world? A Beyander of the Seer sequence, yet making such a low-level mistake, perhaps I should revise some of the fundamental knowledge of this sequence, just like Eamon once did. He lifted his head and met the monster's gaze. His expression was blank, though his already bloody and blurred face showed no expression anyway. You are. This voice. He had heard the existence of this voice when he advanced to clown, to magician, to faceless, and to marionettist. All right, your mission ends here, Rosago. The monster chuckled. Thank you for your sacrifice. In the journey to welcome the apocalypse, Rosago, you also played an indispensable role. He gently placed his hand on Rosago's head. Then, this already bloody and blurred head suddenly exploded. Klein watched Tang stand up and do nothing, and the marionettist impersonating an officer's head suddenly exploded, splattering red and white everywhere, which was terrifying. A Sequence 5 marionettist, merely by touching the mark left by Mr. Error, was killed so thoroughly that not even dregs remained. He instinctively took a step back, his lips twitching. But isn't it a bit too fierce? You'll have to get used to it. Mr. Error sometimes doesn't hold back. Tang mumbled, then shifted the blame. It really is a bit heavy. How am I supposed to view brain as food now? Do you only think of brain when you see something like this? Klein's forehead was covered in black lines. Seeing that Rosago was dead beyond dead, he suppressed the urge to vomit and asked, is this marionettist from Intis? Beyonders of the Seer sequence, apart from Miskatonic University, in large organizations, perhaps only the Secret Order and the Intis Republic possessed continuous and complete potion formulas for the corresponding sequence. Although Klein was not clear to what sequence level the three organizations' potion formulas reached. But in Backland, and coincidentally encountered tonight, there was a 99.9% chance he was from Intis. Probably. Tang nodded, although I transformed into that executioner, whatever he was called, and managed to get by, we can't escape responsibility for Ian Wright's matter. The third-generation difference engine manuscript was placed in a location only Fusak's spies could find. Perhaps only Ian Wright's superior and Ian Wright himself could find the third-generation difference engine manuscript. Klein and Tang had also learned earlier that Ian Wright had been sought by Intis spies. If they hadn't found Detective Zerrill's body, making Ian Wright realize the seriousness of the problem, the final outcome might have been Intis exclusively possessing the difference engine manuscript, with military intelligence 9 and heart of mechanical returning empty-handed. However, Tang rummaged through the clothes on the dead Rosago's body and pulled out a stack of manuscripts from an inside pocket. Look. Tang shook the items in his hand, looked at Klein, and said with a smile, it's as if fate arranged it, delivering the things into our hands. Their instruction for tonight's struggle over the manuscript was to stand by. High-level combat was not suitable for Tang and Klein. Lady Icherlee's original intention was to wait for other investigators to secretly act, take or destroy the manuscript, but now, this manuscript, coincidentally, fell into their hands. It's really too coincidental. Yes, it's really too coincidental. Well, Klein still had a bit of PTSD from the word coincidental, now. After all, the quill pen in Ince Zangwill's hand could manipulate coincidences. But under the gaze of Mr. Error, they shouldn't have fallen into the coincidences created by 008, again. Perhaps. Tang took the manuscript and went to the room to prepare the ritual magic, intending to send the item to Mr. Error. Keeping such a thing on them was not safe, the sooner it was taken away, the better. Klein waited in the living room for Rosago's Beander characteristic to precipitate. The Beander characteristic of a Sequence 5 marionettist and a Sequence 6 faceless, now they had both. Will this be too smooth? Klein mumbled subconsciously. He always felt his luck was rapidly increasing after encountering Mr. Error. However, perhaps this is also another manifestation of the Yellow-Black King, who presides over good fortune. After Tang sent the manuscript to Mr. Error, Rosago's Beander characteristic also precipitated on Klein's side. Seeing Tang magically pull out a piece of cloth from his pocket to wrap the sealed artifact formed by Rosago's eyeball, Klein looked at the remaining parts of Rosago's corpse. How should we deal with the body? Find a place to bury it. Naturally, we'll deal with it using ritual magic. But if you don't mind, Klein, the things on this marionettist can also serve as auxiliary materials for potions. That way, you won't have to search for them when you advance. Never mind, just deal with it using ritual magic. Klein refused. Tang shrugged, all right, no need. With the help of the marionettes, Tang performed another divination interference after Klein. After they set up the altar and prayed to Great Knowledge for ritual magic feedback, marionettist Rosago's body disappeared in a whirlwind. His body will appear in a certain area deep within the violent sea, quickly devoured by the fish there, leaving no trace. Tang said, oh, and the battle over there has ended. The Rose School's demigod succeeded, and the Intis ambassador was assassinated. The battle is over. We plan to pin this on the hedonist faction of the Rose School. They already have a bad reputation on the North Continent, so taking the blame for something like this is normal, isn't it? For some reason, Klein felt that Miskatonic was very adept at shifting blame. As for military intelligence 9 and heart of mechanical, they will be misled towards Intis. The manuscript was indeed in the hands of their marionettist. Good, a closed loop formed. I've processed the Beander characteristic a bit. The negative effects of this sealed artifact are quite strong. If you want to use it, I suggest having an artisan handle it first. It would be better. Tang wrapped the completely black, seemingly cursed eye, formed from Rosago's left eye, in a cloth and placed it on the table. The male and female servants were closing windows and locking doors, preparing to close the detective agency for the day. You're giving this directly to me. Klein said, that marionettist was dealt with by you. It was Mr. Error, who dealt with him. Tang promptly clarified, for Klein, it overlaps with my Beander sequence, and besides, I asked Mr. Error, and Mr. Error responded that this item should be temporarily entrusted to you to enhance the combat power of our somewhat weak magician Mr. My fellow countrymen, how touching. Klein hummed, then asked curiously, I remember, artisan is the name for sequence 6 of the seer sequence. Are there also high-level seers within Miskatonic? The god of craftsman church and Miskatonic are quite at odds. Theoretically, all artisans who believe in the god of craftsmen would not provide services to Miskatonic. In response, Miskatonic should cultivate corresponding artisans to make up for this shortcoming. Of course, there's a branch campus of Miskatonic on a secret island in the Mist Sea, and an angel of the seer sequence is stationed there. Tang said, he is loyal to Miskatonic and Mr. Error, and has no small conflict with the god of craftsman church. Moreover, it is said, Tang paused when he reached this point, then said mysteriously, that angel seems to have close ties with Rosal Gustav of Intis from 200 years ago. Rosal Gustav. Klein was surprised to hear that name here. That angel, I mean, what's his relationship with Rosal the Great? It wouldn't be a father-son or father-daughter relationship, or some melodramatic illegitimate child scenario, would it? It's said to be a kinship, but I'm not sure exactly who. Well, you know, Rosal the Great died so tragically, it would be strange if that angel and the god of craftsman church had a good relationship. Tang shrugged, I don't know any more specific details. These are just some speculative rumors circulating within Miskatonic. I can't guarantee they're true, of course. For rumors about those big figures, just listen and don't take them too seriously. Running up to people and saying such things, are you tired of living? Klein had no choice but to stop discussing this topic. I'll find an opportunity to ask Mr. Flammel later. Mr. Flammel should know, if he's willing to tell. After the male and female servants finished closing up, Tang yawned, ready to go back to sleep. At this moment, a lady's figure was reflected in the room's glass. That figure emerged from a complex, eerie, and dim mirror that seemed to connect to an unknown world. Upon seeing her, Klein quickly greeted her. Acherly. Tang stopped his yawn. With the body control of a Sequence 5 clown, he quickly adjusted his state and bowed to the elder witch who had appeared. Good evening, Mr. Moretti, Mr. Eggs. Acherly had clearly just finished her other business. The reason for her visit to Klein and the others was also self-evident. She cast her gaze upon the black eye on the table, nodding her head. It seems Rosago has indeed been dealt with. Lady, what's the situation? Tang asked. Currently, the manuscript was taken by Rosago. Military Intelligence 9 and Heart of Mechanical are fully investigating his whereabouts, attempting to retrieve the notes before the Intis spy leaves Backland. At this, Acherly's lips curved into a smile. For a glimmer of possibility, they approached Bertrand Jean Martin, who was holding a banquet, trying to extract information from him. Such behavior is generally not allowed, but for that manuscript, they did it. The thinking of Military Intelligence 9 and Heart of Mechanical is correct. Rosago's traces might only be known by Bertrand Jean Martin, the highest-ranking Intis leader stationed in Ruin. As long as he is communed with, even if Rosago detects a problem, Military Intelligence 9 and Heart of Mechanical still have a chance to capture him in advance and retrieve the manuscript. However, regrettably, Bertrand Jean Martin was ambushed tonight by members of the Rose School's Indulgence faction. He became part of a divine abomination's body and can no longer be communed with. Divine abomination. Klein was somewhat curious about the term Acherly used. Sequence 1 of the prisoner sequence, the potion name is Divine Abomination. Acherly said casually, the leader of the Indulgence faction who was expelled from the South Continent by the Rose School a long time ago was a Sequence 1 Divine Abomination. He was born from the Bound God, and can be said to be the Bound God's direct child, and also. At this, Acherly paused. Seeing Klein and Tang staring at her unblinkingly, the smile on the lady's lips unconsciously became a little mischievous. All right. The following content is not something you children can access yet, In any case, Military Intelligence 9 and Heart of Mechanical dare not perform divination or communion regarding Bertrand Jean Martin's death, as it would bring misfortune. In the world of Beyonders, when divining about high-level beings, it's not a problem if you can't divine anything. What's terrifying is if you do divine something. If they really did divine something, I believe the Beyonders of Military Intelligence 9 and Heart of Mechanical, no matter how urgent, would not dare to risk being cursed from a distance by a divine abomination to vaguely search for Rossigo's traces. A manuscript, it's important, yet not important. Compared to their own lives, they should be able to abandon a manuscript. Everything is so coincidental, as if it were fate. Acherly sighed with emotion. She looked at Klein. I can temporarily handle that sealed artifact formed from Rossigo. Once you find Lanruis, who is hidden by the Aurora Order, I can commission an artisan to craft this sealed artifact into a magical item with less severe negative effects. Thank you, Acherly, Klein said with a hint of surprise. No need to thank me. Everything is fate, and also our destiny. Acherly said. It wasn't until the fourth day after Bertrand Jean Martin's death that Klein and Tang went to Braveheart's bar to find the marionette Sharon and the wraith Marich. Led by the waiter, the two of them once again entered the room they had been in before. It was still the same place, still the same gloomy environment. We need to locate a demigod-level marionette. He is a believer of the bound god. Sharon, who had killed Bertrand Jean Martin, the Intis ambassador, spoke without expression. Her voice was ethereal and sounded quite hollow. This demigod carries a sealed artifact that is very important to us. We need to locate him and obtain that sealed artifact. This is somewhat dangerous, but we are the main force. You only need to be responsible for providing information and necessary support. A very important sealed artifact. This was the content of the transaction between the Rose School's restraint faction and Miskatonic. The Rose School was responsible for dealing with the Intis ambassador using the Indulgence faction's methods, interrupting the subsequent tracking by Military Intelligence 9 and Heart of Mechanical, while Miskatonic would help ambush a Sequence 4 demigod and seize a sealed artifact from him. Both sides needed to bear certain risks. The Rose School needed to intercept subsequent investigations from official extraordinary organizations to prevent Miskatonic from being implicated, while Miskatonic needed to provide effective intelligence and help the Rose School's restraint faction members assassinate a demigod without being detected by the bound god or a divine abomination. We will be responsible for the corresponding intelligence investigation. This time, Tang was the leader. Klein stepped back slightly, yielding his position. He is currently in Backland, but more precise information will only be available after some time. We need to wait. No problem, Sharon said. It was a concise exchange, ensuring their communication would not attract the attention of those official extraordinary organizations. After agreeing on the next meeting time, Klein and Tang left. The room door was closed again. The living corpses around Marich began to take out deck after deck of playing cards, shuffling and cutting them. While the living corpses were working, Marich asked Sharon curiously, "Sharon, why must we cooperate with Miskatonic? As long as Lord Tinicol comes to the North Continent, that sealed artifact should be easily retrieved by us." Sharon's eyes flickered slightly, and she softly said, "Teacher has other things to do. He is temporarily not suitable to show himself in the North Continent." Marich pondered for a moment, sighing silently, "I don't know why, but I always feel that the actions of those in the Indulgence faction have become increasingly frantic recently, as if they are preparing for something very important." Sharon fell silent after hearing what Marich said. Marich was quite familiar with Sharon's state, and he did not speak further. Just as Marich thought Sharon wouldn't answer him, Sharon suddenly said, "Doomsday. They are preparing for the arrival of Doomsday." Monday afternoon, at the Tarot Club. After Miss Justice's usual greeting, Mr. Error sat at the head of the bronze long table, introducing the new member of the Tarot Club to the current members. "This is Mr. Magician." In Mr. Error's Tarot Club, Mr. Power, Gale Bray, turned his head. When he saw the figure hidden beneath the hood, his pupils contracted for a moment, but he quickly reined in his emotions, not letting Justice Audrey read his thoughts. Bertrand Abraham. Gale Bray was unaware of what Tang had done during the Blood Moon. Suddenly encountering Bertrand here, he didn't know whether to feel more shock or more of a, "so that's how it is" sentiment. Mr. Magician. As Justice Audrey curiously scrutinized the figure opposite her, who seemed to be a middle-aged man, Mr. Magician was also observing everyone in the Tarot Club. He sat in the high-backed chair, showing none of the shock one might expect from a first encounter with the Grey Mist. Clearly, he had either been to the Grey Mist before, or he was a powerful individual who had witnessed many bizarre occurrences. And, he seems to be someone Mr. Power is familiar with. Miss Justice Audrey had just caught an abnormal movement from Mr. Power at one point. She was already a Sequence 8 mind reader, easily able to discern the emotions represented by corresponding body language. It was just a momentary surprise, though it was quickly masked. Miss Justice Audrey still noticed something was amiss. Perhaps, another demigod. Hanged Man Alger suppressed his awe and fear of Mr. Error. His attitude was now even more respectful, and his conduct had become more cautious. A true gathering before a god, perhaps it's nothing more than this. This time, neither Miss Justice nor Mr. Hanged Man had Rosal the Great's late life diary to hand over to Mr. Error. Mr. Error still remained like a high and mighty observer, silent, seated at the head of the bronze long table. "Thank you very much for your help, Mr. Power." Seeing that Mr. Error had no intention of speaking, Alger was the first to address Mr. Power, breaking the silence above the Grey Mist. "It was just a transaction. You offered a fair price." Mr. Power, Gale Bray, said somewhat against his will. "Fair." Hanged Man weighed something in his heart, but ultimately said nothing more on the matter. As Mr. Power, Gale Bray, spoke, he faintly heard a soft chuckle from Mr. Error in his ear. His old face flushed, but thankfully the Grey Mist obscured him, preventing him from making a fool of himself in front of everyone. "Your vicious competition will severely devalue a demigod, Gale." As a veteran, Mr. Error felt a bit helpless regarding Mr. Power's somewhat naive nature. He had simply used some daily necessities to get a demigod to help him with a task, even he found such a transaction cheap. Although, Mr. Hanged Man seemed to be overthinking again. Oh well. What could he say about a transaction that both parties agreed to? He could only respect and bless it. I don't know why, but a few days ago, the Beyonders in the Backland area made some very unusual moves. Miss Justice Audrey said. She was somewhat curious, and, as far as I know, the Intis ambassador to Ruin was brutally murdered, and it's said that Beyonders from the Rose School did it. Why would this Rose School do such a thing? Chapter 371, 370 Group Meeting. Perhaps, this matter has no reason at all, it's just a very coincidental phenomenon. Hanged Man Alger exhaled. He actually didn't understand why the Rose School got involved at this time and killed the Intis ambassador. Why are they acting like the Aurora Order? Oh, speaking of the Aurora Order. Mr. Hanged Man said to Justice Audrey, the bound god worshipped by the Rose School is a deity in itself. This secret order first appeared on the South Continent. For some unknown reasons, some of their members came to the North Continent. Its nature is similar to that of the Aurora Order on the North Continent. Therefore, to a certain extent, within a certain range, it is common for these Beyonders of the Rose School to create terrorist incidents to sacrifice to their bound god. Of course, this does not rule out the possibility that someone hired the Rose School Beyonders, but I think this possibility is extremely slim. An extremely slim possibility. Mr. Error's smile deepened, and he remained silent. Mr. Power averted his gaze, saying nothing. Mr. Magician smiled at the corners of his mouth, observing the reactions of everyone present. Think, if you can think a little more. Mr. Hanged Man, keep it up. All right. Mr. Hanged Man's explanation was one possibility, but Miss Justice Audrey, with a certain political shrewdness, believed there might be another hidden truth. She looked thoughtful, her gaze falling on Mr. Error at the head of the bronze long table. In the end, Miss Justice merely pursed her lips and did not ask what exactly happened in Backland. A big shot like Mr. Error certainly wouldn't pay attention to such small matters. Audrey secretly told herself, it's still because my sequence isn't high enough, and my influence is insufficient. Mr. Power Gale Bray glanced at the young girl opposite him and sighed in his heart. What a good girl, how did she get manipulated into such a state? Very good, another reason to kill that guy Tang Eggers. At this moment, Mr. Error lightly tapped the bronze long table, emitting an ancient, mottled sound, like a bell from past history. This sound drew the attention of everyone present. Mr. Error's eyes narrowed slightly, and his tone was calm and smiling, as if he were talking about the most ordinary thing. Many things have indeed happened in Backland recently. The chaos Miss Justice mentioned, its root cause comes from a manuscript. Manuscript. Alger and Audrey both did not expect Mr. Error to answer their question. Hanged Man Alger thought back, frowning, and asked in confusion, Mr. Error, may I ask, what kind of manuscript is worth several major forces fighting over? What manuscript can attract the attention of so many forces, causing them to start a free-for-all in a metropolis like Backland? The third generation difference engines. Mr. Error chuckled, Intis wants to obtain it, and the Artisan Church and Ruin also want to obtain it. The third generation difference engines manuscript. Audrey, who didn't quite understand this aspect, asked confusedly, but Mr. Error, that's just a manuscript, not a finished draft, and nothing has been made from it. Why are they fighting so fiercely? Logically speaking, it's just a manuscript, and it's not even clear whether the final product made according to this manuscript can be used. Why do the major churches, the Ruin official, and Intis all want to get their hands on it? Wouldn't waiting for a better opportunity be a better choice? There are many reasons for this. Mr. Error said, of course, the main reason is that the third generation difference engine manuscript has a close connection with the deity worshipped by the Artisan Church. The deity worshipped by the Artisan Church. God of craftsmen. Hanged Man Alger chewed on the meaning of this sentence. What does the third generation difference engine manuscript have to do with the God of craftsmen? Why are they scrambling to seize it? There must be a secret I don't know about. Perhaps, this secret is the key to the problem. Mr. Power also began to ponder. Although he had indeed known about these things when he obtained the Lord of the Mysteries memories from Tang, the fate of the entire world and the original work had deviated greatly now, and he had to consider the deeper issues within. At this moment, Mr. Magician, who had not spoken from the beginning until now, suddenly spoke. The God of craftsmen's state is not very good. Justice Audrey and Hanged Man Alger, who had been closely observing this new member of the Tarot Club, looked over. Mr. Power, sitting next to Mr. Magician, also couldn't help but look over. Very good, Mr. Power clearly hadn't figured anything out. Seeing the gazes of the others, Mr. Magician, whose body was obscured by the gray fog, straightened slightly. His voice was deep and calm, filled with the steadiness and conviction that comes from extensive experience. His state is perhaps the worst among all deities. Regarding such secrets known only to high-ranking individuals, Mr. Magician spoke as if he had personally participated, his words exuding an ancient and mottled aura. Rosal Gustav. When this name was mentioned, Mr. Magician's tone held a hint of melancholy. Rosal Gustav was the carefully chosen contaminated one. While trapped in the storm and darkness, Mr. Magician had seen this junior more than once, stepping by step towards his predetermined destiny. Although the weaver of this destiny was not the fallen mother goddess. He was once considered by the Artisan Church to be the enlightener of the steam and machinery age, a practitioner who would lead the Artisan Church to a higher level. It's just a pity that everyone knows how much Rosal the Great was at odds with the Artisan Church, even to the point of fighting whenever they met their pope. Mr. Magician slowly revealed an unknown part of Rosal the Great. After Rosal the Great returned from studying in Ruin, he implemented drastic reforms, introducing many advanced technologies from Ruin into the Intis Empire. This caused dissatisfaction within the Artisan Church, who believed that such mechanical creations were merely grandstanding. Rosal Gustav broke with the god of craftsman church and attempted to expel the artisan church from the Intis Empire. Mr. Hanged Man and Miss Justice were amazed. They didn't know much about Rosal the Great, only catching glimpses of the secrets from the tasks assigned by Mr. Error. Most of what Mr. Magician was saying now, they had never heard before. Rosal the Great had a huge conflict with the artisan church, and this conflict began after he returned from studying in Rouen. At this point, Mr. Magician once again returned to the original topic. For them, the manuscript of the third generation difference engine is not important. What is important is that it can help the artisan church restart the steam and machinery age project. This way, they can gain a certain degree of initiative in their struggle with a certain secret order. Don't think that the people of Intis are acting for the artisan church, and don't assume Rouen is acting for their own country. We don't need to consider the actions of the Rose School. What we need to consider is, who exactly is profiting from this matter. If Klein were present, he would definitely say, "That's right, this is what Miskatonic did." If there's anyone in this world who wants to make the artisan church suffer, besides the mysterious Moses ascetic order, it's only Miskatonic University. Thanks to Miskatonic's efforts, the god of craftsman's potion has not been fully digested yet, and his sequence 0 position is unstable, in an extremely poor state. Furthermore, the current advent of the steam and machinery age is not to say it has nothing to do with the artisan church, it can only be said that the advent of this era has absolutely nothing to do with them. The god of craftsmen, who can't even leech off the potion digestion, clearly needs a new opportunity to quickly help him digest the potion and face the apocalypse. Otherwise, if he continues in this state, what awaits him can only be. At this point, Mr. Magician stopped speaking, only subtly glancing at Mr. Error at the head of the bronze long table. Mr. Error remained unchanged, leaning back in the high-backed chair, smiling silently. He didn't care about what Mr. Magician said. Miss Justice was still a bit puzzled, while Mr. Hanged Man looked thoughtful. There were indeed some rumors in the mysticism circle that Miskatonic, an officially recognized mysticism institution, was at odds with the god of craftsman church. But he didn't know why they were at odds. It's just, what role did Mr. Error play in the assassination of the Intis ambassador? Was it really the Rose School's radical faction that killed that Intis ambassador? And who benefited from it? After the Tarot Club ended, and after the light from the Crimson Star took Hanged Man and Justice away, Mr. Error adjusted his hat. "Gale, stay a moment. There are some things that require your participation." Mr. Power Gale Bray heard Mr. Error's instruction and could only stop his attempt to descend from the gray fog. He looked impassively towards the very end of the bronze long table. After the two non-core members left, Mr. World's figure finally emerged there, appearing from within the gray fog. Cough, cough. Tang, having lifted his unobservable state, coughed twice feigning, then said, "Is one of the highest leaders of the Tarot Club. After the formal Tarot Club meeting ends, we still need to have a group meeting or something to briefly report and summarize the situation. After all, my main body is still deep in the violent sea, and timely updates of some information are clearly quite important." Mr. Magician Bertrand Abraham asked with some interest. "Stiliano's potion still hasn't been fully digested. Perhaps there's a bit of bad luck involved." Tang took a few sheets of paper from the historical mist, his expression smiling, full of schadenfreude, who told him to run into Rosal Gustav, who was a bit rebellious and a bit chunabu. Alas, one can only say that his subordinates misinterpreted his oracle. Inciting people, you have to pick the right ones, don't you? So, having his digestion opportunity snatched, he has to find another chance. If he doesn't digest the potion quickly, the outcome is self-evident. It feels a bit like a cornered dog jumping over a wall. Well, that's right. Otherwise, when the apocalypse arrives, the first to sacrifice will be this sequence 0 in poor condition. Or even before the apocalypse, whether it's the hidden sage who desires the observer position, or Miskatonic University, a real fight could take half of his old life. Cough, cough, I'll just say a few words. Gale, your expression makes me feel like I'm some unscrupulous, black-hearted boss who makes employees work overtime for meetings. Nicola, how are things on your end? Everything is proceeding according to plan. Mr. Error smiled, his tone gentle, but the content was unsettling. Constant surveillance, necessary guidance, and a little bit of destiny. He lowered his eyelids and said indifferently, this child is at the age where his worldview is being shaped. Observation, interference, manipulation, the three essential elements of an observer. As a benefactor of the Supreme Being's sequence, Mr. Error can clearly execute these thoroughly. Tang has now entrusted Nicola with full responsibility for the matters in Intis. His main body will remain there until that little boy, who is inexplicably linked to the Ring of Destiny, is properly trained. After all, the Ring of Destiny might do something, and Tang has no intention of underestimating this old one whose authority is adjacent to his own. Tang wrote a few words on the paper in front of him, then looked at Mr. Power Gale Bray. How's little son doing? Under the leadership of Mr. Fool, he is growing normally and steadily. Speaking of little son Derek Berg, Gale Bray barely managed to compose himself, feeling a headache. He looked at Tang and asked, can't we really change the person there? Because he's too naive and sweet. Tang looked up in confusion, his expression a bit strange as he swept his gaze over Mr. Power, his meaning unclear. If that's the reason, you two are actually the same. No need to be so eager to compare yourself to a Sequence 9 here, Gale. Gale Bray. Can I kill him? Mr. Power couldn't maintain his composure, and his expression turned unpleasant again. Mr. Magician then looked at Tang, then, Mr. World, what do you need me to do? Cooperate with Mr. Error, and seize the opportunity to use Source Castle's suppressive force to steal power from your main body. Tang said, Source Castle can open a back door. Before Mr. Door leaves the seal, take what you can. Chapter 372, 371 Underground Mausoleum. After the Tarot Club ended, Klein let out a sigh of relief. He rubbed his temples, looked at the empty gray mist, and shook his head. Mr. Fool also has it tough. But it was still much better than the initial struggle. The Tarot Club was growing steadily, with Miss Magician from the Abraham family, Derek from the Forsaken Land of the Gods, Mr. Hanged Man, a defector from the Storm Church, a Backland noble, and Miss Justice who owned an extraordinary dog. The more he delved, the more Klein understood, the more he felt that the underlying reality of this world was both mad and terrifying, twisted and dark. Moreover, the situation in the Forsaken Land of the Gods was indeed quite special. Klein thought about the history of Silver City that Derek Berg had spoken of, and some things that Little Sun had mentioned within Silver City. He could only marvel at the power of Mr. Error, that senior transmigrator. One had to wonder, why would bottled water, finished cotton products, noodles, and even Janbing Guozi appear in the East Continent, which was supposed to be isolated? When he heard Little Son Derek say that Janbing Guozi was the staple food in Silver City, Klein almost lost his composure. Mr. Flammel, how much do you love Janbing Guozi? If not for the absence of ore lamps, the perpetual darkness, the constant rumble of lightning, and the countless monsters lurking in the shadows, Klein would have even thought that Silver City had a close connection with Tingen City, perhaps even being an alternate Tingen City on another continent. Speaking of which, there were a lot of Janbing Guozi and hand-grabbed pancakes in the snack street outside Tingen University. Tingen City has Janbing Guozi equals this is Mr. Flammel's territory. Silver City has Janbing Guozi equals this is Tingen City equals this is Mr. Flammel's territory. Very good, the equation holds true. The Forsaken Land of the Gods is also Miskatonic's territory. It's just that, although I don't know why Little Sun doesn't know about Miskatonic, nor about the existence of Mr. Error, Nicola Flammel. But perhaps this was what those high-level beings were doing. It was normal not to fully understand some of the actions of these high-level beings. After all, there were many things that he, at his sequence, couldn't comprehend. This was a place where knowledge was poisonous. If one understood too much, one wouldn't even know how one died. Klein was just a little curious as to why Mr. Flammel could find an entrance to a place that even the seven deities couldn't, and from the looks of it, he had been developing a foothold there for a long time. Mr. Flamel's power might be even stronger than I thought, he might not be weaker than any deity. Mortal body, comparable to a god. However, perhaps the so-called gods in this world are just higher-level beyonders. Just like what's written in those novels. As a keyboard warrior, Klein knew a little about everything. Immortals are just stronger cultivators. Saying this, he shook his head, preparing to go offline. Klein had not told Nicola about this mysterious space above the gray mist, and Nicola also seemed to have no intention of investigating. However, matters concerning the forsaken land of the gods were clearly secrets within the major churches. The information Klein obtained through the Tarot Club, its source, could not actually withstand scrutiny. Of course, if Nicola were to ask, he would most likely tell the truth. He always felt that Mr. Flamel had known about the secrets on his person for a long time, but had just never explicitly stated it. Regarding the curse during the full moon that Klein had previously inquired about, Nicola also informed him through a letter. The source of the blood moon curse is not the blood moon itself, but rather something hidden within the blood moon. I have some of Huang Dao's diaries here, as well as some related information. I will mail them to you, and you should understand once you've read them. From this, Klein learned about Mr. Dor, and that Rosal the Great had once come into contact with this Mr. Dor. The information Nicola gave him, of course, contained more than just these things. Some secrets of Mr. Dor, Nicola also gave to him. This included Mr. Dor's former Beander status, as well as some of the origins and connections between Mr. Dor and the Abraham family. Being the fool is truly difficult. Klein sighed silently once more. He simulated the sensation of falling, tilting his body downwards, leaving the gray mist, and returning to the real world. Ruin, Backland. Tang's spiritual intuition stirred, and his gaze fell upon a distant eaves outside the window. There, on the eaves, a beautiful-faced lady was gazing at the red moon in the sky, and countless black, snake-like shadows silently spread out from beneath her feet, connecting to all the surrounding mirrors. As if noticing Tang's gaze, Acherly gracefully lifted her skirt and bowed towards him, her figure slowly disappearing. The snake-like hair that had been wildly writhing on the ground earlier seemed to have been just a hallucination, vanishing without a trace. Oh no, she adapted so well. Elder Witch, without determination and willpower, an ordinary witch cannot reach this level. His marionette is an exception. After all, for a marionette, digesting potions, especially a witch's potion, only requires a slight change in settings to be suitable for acting. And clearly, this elder witch was not a puppet in his hands, unlike Brooks or his other marionettes in Backland. Most of the first batch of Miskatonic University students were still excelling in their respective positions. With Mr. Error present, even if they hadn't reached the demigod level, or if their own lifespan was far from reaching 1,000 years as a demigod, they could still extend their lifespan and survive through Mr. Error's bestowal. These individuals were the core pillars that enabled Miskatonic to maintain a relatively neutral stance with the major orthodox churches in the Beander world, possessing extraordinary status. Experienced Beyonders were highly sought after in both official extraordinary organizations and secret orders. The experience accumulated through life and death situations was a valuable asset to these organizations. Of course, apart from this group of people, a small number either died or went mad, confined to mental asylums, never to see the light of day again. Tang's gaze retracted, and he also looked at the red moon in the sky. The crimson moonlight permeated the black velvet curtain, appearing exquisite and revealing an otherworldly beauty. "It's all right," he whispered, unsure if he was speaking to himself or to others. "Everything will be over soon." He stood by the window for a long time, until Klein next door had finished writing and sent out his letter to Mr. Error, only then did he lie back down and close his eyes to sleep. Deep in the violent sea, at the very bottom of the dark, inverted pyramid mausoleum, Tang, seated midair, slowly opened his eyes, receiving the information obtained by his historical void projection. He looked at the Yu serpent, which was already half submerged in the river of eternal darkness, and with a slight movement of his finger, spirit threads once again spread out from its body, one after another. As an angel king of the seer pathway, he once again awakened the spirit threads that had died due to the power of stillness, turning every spiritual and meander part of the usurpant into his marionette, into a puppet in his hands, and peeling it away. "How are things outside?" Owen asked. "Only normal," Tang said, his eyes half closed. "The barrier's repair is imminent, that thing is getting weaker and weaker, and the power seeping in from the outer deities is also getting stronger. But it doesn't matter. When the sky falls, there are tall people to hold it up. The plan is proceeding steadily, and in this way, we are bound to be victorious in the end." Tang tilted his head and looked at Owen. "Owen, where do you plan to go after the apocalypse ends?" Owen thought for a moment, then his eyes suddenly widened. "Tang, what are you thinking? Don't make such, a flag. This is what you said." Tang. He really wanted to slap this guy to death. The next morning, after the manuscript incident, Klein and Tang, who were resting at home, received a new commission at the detective agency. The client wanted them to deal with something in the basement of the mansion he had bought. Klein and Tang accepted the commission and set off to handle it. A largely collapsed underground ruin. Tang, who had observed it beforehand, thought carefully, I don't think it will be difficult to handle, but inside. Tang frowned, used an illusion to confuse the ordinary person next to him, and whispered to Klein, "Klein, don't you think it feels a bit eerie down there? Now that you mention it." Klein also felt goosebumps rise. He turned his head to look at the old butler who was following them, already obscured by the illusion, unable to see or hear them speak. "Is there a problem with this underground ruin?" "I think there is. My spiritual intuition tells me something's not quite right here." Tang nodded. "Things like this from several hundred years ago are dangerous, not to mention looking at this decoration, it clearly looks like an old antique from the previous epoch." As a dual degree holder in linguistics and history, Klein, after being reminded, also determined that the architectural style here was completely out of place with all historical styles from the Fifth Epoch to the present. "Should we report it?" Klein asked tentatively. Tang nodded decisively. "Exactly, Klein, that's it. The first rule all of us diviners must abide by is to follow the heart's desire." "What follow the heart's desire?" Klein silently sighed. "Tang, you're truly a talent to phrase cowardice so refreshingly." The two did not explain the situation to the client, only saying that they needed to prepare some things, and then left 15 Minsk Street. After finding a hidden place and chanting Achirli's honorific name to inform this sequence 3 elder witch of the situation, Achirli quickly arrived. Facing this elder witch, even without using spirituality, just her naturally exuded charm, the old butler and their employer were instantly mesmerized, allowing the three to proceed straight down. "It is indeed the architectural style of the Fourth Epoch." Achirli confirmed this after observing for a while. "You two engrave a ritual magic to clear away these collapsed things?" she said. "Yes, lady." Klein and Tang moved quickly. As a level 3 and level 2 ritual master, respectively, they immediately used the spiritual materials in their hands to pray to great knowledge, and received a response. The collapsed buildings in front of them gradually returned to their original positions, revealing an underground passage 4 people wide and 3 people high. Achirli walked forward into it. Klein and Tang exchanged glances and walked in together. They hadn't walked far when they saw statues representing the 7 deities and an empty throne. Achirli looked solemnly at the empty throne, a rare frown on her face as she pondered. "This matter is a bit complicated. I need to report it to Mr. Error. Klein, Tang, you two should go back first. We will seal this area, and your employer will also be properly settled." The birthplace of the former Red Angel, now the evil spirit of Soren Einhorn Medici. Speaking of which, Mr. Error did say that the backland area would become lively. Was the liveliness he spoke of the struggle between Mr. Brooks and the Red Angel? Someone in the rebellion had received help from a high-level being of the Red Priest pathway, which was why they repeatedly evaded her map-like purges and disrupted Mr. Brooks's control over lower-level individuals. Was Klein's and that person's discovery of this place a coincidence, or? Acherly looked at Tang's departing back, receiving no hint. Is everything predetermined, and also fate? Is all of this a destined future? Brooks, the conqueror responsible for Backland, also saw the empty throne when he arrived. His expression remained unchanged, while Acherly had already noticed the anomaly. So, everything is still under his arrangement. Brooks was silent for a moment, then nodded, indicating his assent. Acherly twirled her long black hair around her finger, looking thoughtful. She looked at Brooks. Does he wish for the Red Angel to compete with you? The Red Priest's apotheosis ritual has a certain trajectory of fate. Compared to a conqueror who advances all the way, competition is more helpful for becoming a Red Priest. I don't quite understand. Acherly was a little confused. 3 portions of the Red Priest pathway's uniqueness, along with the uniqueness, should all be within our control. Even if competition is needed, why would he choose the Red Angel evil spirit? And not someone else? Or rather, Acherly's eyes flickered, is it related to the original witch? Even though the witch sect had reached an agreement with them, with sequence struggles present, the current stability might not be eternal stability. Chapter 373, 372 The Calamitous Klein. Such matters involving Fourth Epoch ruins were not something they should be involved in at their age. After handing over the underground ruin situation to the Miskatonic's person in charge in ruin, Tang and Klein ended their commission early and returned directly to the detective agency. Klein rode back in a carriage, somewhat distracted. He was thinking about the statues symbolizing 6 deities he had seen in the underground ruin. According to Acherly, those statues were indeed the images of the deities themselves from the Fourth Epoch. As for why there were 6 and not 7, it was naturally because the god of craftsmen did not exist at that time. A ruin from the Fourth Epoch Tudor Empire, a room with deity statues, an empty throne. It looked eerie no matter how he saw it. Tang, however, was quite open-minded. I'm not too clear about the history of this period. Even in the library, these should be top-secret materials, right? But thankfully, we don't need to deal with this kind of trouble. If every day from now on could be this peaceful, just finding Lanruis, doing missions, and such. After returning to the detective agency, Tang curled up in the rocking chair, swaying back and forth, looking very leisurely. It was a rare moment of relaxation. Do you investigators usually have a lot of missions? Klein was not a formally trained investigator after all, and he didn't know much about these matters. Although his position, thanks to error, was affiliated with the Miskatonic, Klein's current thinking was still more or less confined within the Night Watchers system. The Night Watchers rarely transferred personnel from other regions, and there weren't many Beander-related cases within their own area. The most Klein had to worry about and consider with the Night Watchers was how to study. Not too many, I suppose. Tang said leisurely, we're not quite like the Night Watchers. The Miskatonic has branch schools in various regions, but there aren't many investigators in the branch schools. Our duties are not limited to investigating Beyonders and Beander incidents, they also involve exploring the unknown and recording anomalies. Because the branch schools are often understaffed, we frequently have to run around all day. Oh, right, there's a special mode of transportation at the school. It looks like our common steam train, and we call it the Spirit World Express. Through the manipulation of high-level students, that mode of transportation can travel through the spirit world without being attacked by spirit world creatures. If the mission location is too far, we even have to take the Spirit World Express and jump there. Spirit World Express. Klein's mouth twitched slightly, still maintaining his composure. Could it be that the Miskatonic also had something like Platform 9 3/4? It's quite convenient, Klein said somewhat against his will. A mode of transportation that travels through the spirit world. Speaking of which, I haven't seen what the spirit world looks like yet. There's no up, down, left, or right. The colors are rich and layered. Some people reportedly get very dizzy using this mode of transportation. As for missions, some are simple, just dealing with cultist murders or dangerous rituals attempted by ordinary people. The troublesome ones involve confronting secret orders that worship evil gods, or exploring unusual regions. Those beyonders from secret orders, Tingen City has a silent rule, so even those cultists have to abide by it when they come in, but outside, they don't have that concern. Look, that underground ruin, if we had discovered it, then we would have the right to bypass the Church of the True Gods and investigate. Overall, the number of missions is very small now. The current pace of life is the retired life I hope for. Klein was speechless, saying somewhat teasingly, "You're already thinking about retirement at your age." Tang. Sometimes I don't want to work this awful job for even a day. After all, who is born to be a workaholic? Klein choked, thinking of his own rather miserable working life before transmigrating. All right, don't say any more, talking too much only brings tears. All right, you have a point. If not for what happened in Tingen City, Klein thought he would have been researching how to return to his homeland while being a slacker in the Night Watchers. After a while of chattering, the detective agency was calm and peaceful today. In the evening, Klein left the detective agency a step early, preparing to visit the secret gathering in Backland. Perhaps I can find some information about Lanruis. As a detective on the surface, Klein also thought of the weekly flowing funds deposited into the anonymous account at the Backland Bank. Regarding their operating expenses and the money earned as a detective, isn't money meant to be spent? Generally speaking, as long as the reason is reasonable, even if the operating expenses are insufficient, we can apply for additional reimbursement. If you think some magical item here is what you need, there's no problem buying it. Tang said very nonchalantly at the time. After reaching a high sequence, many things can't be solved with money. For example, a sequence 4 potion formula, the corresponding main and auxiliary materials. The Diviner Club no longer provides the corresponding purchase qualifications, only accepting bartering. The Miskatonic is pretty much the same in this regard. You need to apply and have a certain amount of contribution, but in short, it will be easier to obtain than from secret orders and those wild beyonders. So, while money is still useful, spend as much as you can. So, it's really good to rely on a big tree for shade, Klein sighed silently. Especially when this big tree was planted by your relatives. After leaving the detective agency, Klein went directly to Braveheart's bar. However, this time he was not there to meet the Rose School Restraint faction member. Following the instructions of the bar owner, Caspers, Klein entered the hidden gathering place. After Caspers left, Klein adjusted his mask, making sure it perfectly covered his face. Although Klein had already subtly adjusted his facial features with a sealed artifact, only those truly familiar with him would be able to recognize him. However, as a diviner, he still needed to maintain a certain level of vigilance. In the dimly lit equipment room, illuminated by a flickering, faint candle, Klein found a spot and quietly sat down. Not a small number of people came to this gathering. Because it was registered with the Miskatonic, it was a semi-official mysticism gathering, and official beyonders generally wouldn't investigate here. As long as there was no trouble, as long as no cultists tried to recruit people here, then this semi-public, semi-official mysticism gathering would certainly be a gathering that many wild beyonders, who couldn't find potion materials or formulas, would be happy to attend. Of course, protecting privacy was still very important in this place. Those wild beyonders who hadn't joined any official organization and didn't want to be involved with the Miskatonic just wanted to live ordinary lives and were unwilling to get involved in any dangerous matters. Once their real-life identities were known, trouble might come knocking. While waiting for the gathering to begin, Klein secretly observed the other people in the sitting room. He didn't notice anything unusual, nor did he realize that one of the people sitting behind him silently took out a small, exquisite compact mirror from his pocket. "Triss, the person you mentioned has indeed appeared here." The young man's voice didn't carry at all, not attracting the attention of others or Klein. Triss Chick's figure appeared in the compact mirror. She watched the people at the gathering with a smile, secretly observing everything here, as well as that person. Why have the trajectories of this life and the previous life changed completely differently? Triss was thinking about this. After returning to this point in time, coming to Backland, and staying here for a period, Trischik had actually figured out many things with her demigod-level power. The witch responsible for Backland was not the witch sect member she was familiar with, Despair Nightingale, Panatia, but an elder witch, yet not Katrina. This world had an additional secret order called the Miskatonic. The former great detective Sherlock Moriarty also had close ties with that elder witch she didn't know. Backland's dark side concealed an unknown number of marionettes. A malevolent spirit calling itself Red Angel suddenly approached them, seeking cooperation. The Backland Great Smog Incident, George III's deification ritual. Triss had experience. She found several mausoleums that George III was secretly building, but limited by her own lack of power, she didn't go in to tamper with them. What happened to the witch sect? Will Edsac become a sacrifice again? Triss was secretly hidden in the world behind the mirror. She observed Sherlock Moriarty, trying to uncover some secrets from this great detective she was somewhat familiar with. She had a premonition that she could get clues from Sherlock Moriarty. The previous blatant tailing was not only to test Sherlock Moriarty at that time, but also to draw out those things. Whose marionettes were those things, after all? Zarathus, or others? Triss's gaze passed through the mirror, looking at the people in the sitting room. She didn't find anyone with an abnormal reaction, nor did she get an abnormal feeling from anyone. No one knew if there were marionettes in here. She also wasn't sure when her perception of those monster marionettes would be triggered. Everything seemed very passive. The host of the gathering, codenamed Eye of Wisdom, had the ability to verify whether a potion formula was correct. Klein knew through the Miskatonic's intelligence network that this Eye of Wisdom's true identity was actually a relatively famous detective in Backland, Shinger Stanton. Not much information could actually be gained at the gathering. Most of the Beyonders here hadn't even reached Sequence 7. However, what Klein found interesting was that a Beyonder named Black Snake died in the sewers. This caused his spirituality to be touched, and he felt a slight abnormality. Is this matter related to the Aurora Order? Klein's eyes flickered slightly. He wasn't sure about this, but his spiritual intuition told him that this matter had a certain connection to the things he was investigating. I can investigate that sewer later. If it really is something the Aurora Order cooked up, perhaps I can follow the clues and find Lanruis's whereabouts. The gathering ended quickly. Eye of Wisdom arranged for people to leave one by one. When Klein left, there were only a few people left in the sitting room. When Eye of Wisdom, Shinger Stanton motioned for Klein to leave, he whispered to him. Be careful, there are eyes following you. Hearing this, Klein's eyes, hidden beneath the mask, moved slightly. Using the clown's Beyonder power, he quickly controlled his facial expressions, showing no flaws, and followed the attendant of Eye of Wisdom, Shinger Stanton, leaving the sitting room. Walking in the corridor, Klein quickly took off his clothes and wiped his face. The wriggling flesh on his face moved like a Peking opera face change. By the time he walked out of the corridor and into the streets dominated by the night, he had already changed his attire. Not only his face, but even his height and build had changed. Faceless are one of the most suitable Beyonders to be active in big cities, their disguise abilities are incredibly powerful. Why do I feel like I've been so unlucky recently? Klein complained inwardly. Not long ago, he was targeted by a Sequence 4 Despair Witch. Why was he targeted again at this gathering? But that wasn't right. He had been very quiet, barely speaking. Why would anyone target someone who seemed so unremarkable? There were quite a few pedestrians on the street. Klein pretended to be nonchalant and blended in with the crowd. The streetlights emitted a faint glow, making Klein feel a little at ease. He silently used the mirrors of the surrounding shops to observe his surroundings, and he didn't see any strange guys. Looks like he shook them off. Klein thought so, walking past an alleyway. His spiritual intuition was suddenly triggered at this moment. A pair of hands suddenly appeared from the shadows of the alleyway, grabbing Klein's shoulders, trying to drag him into the shadows. Klein reacted very quickly. He backhanded and restrained the arm of the person who ambushed him, trying to pull him out of the shadows. Under the red moon's illumination, Klein clearly saw that it was a somewhat disheveled young man. With him restrained, Klein pressed him to the ground with his backhand and looked down at the fellow. "Who are you? Who sent you to monitor me?" "I'm from the rebellion." The young man grimaced, quickly whispering to Klein, "I have something I want to tell you. You'll definitely be interested." Chapter 374, 373 Find him. Rebellion members. Klein narrowed his eyes, scrutinizing the young man who was squirming on the ground, trying to break free from his control. As if something had occurred to him, Klein slowly asked, "Why did you come looking for me?" This was something he hadn't figured out yet. If it was a skirmish between Tang and the rebellion that led to him being indirectly targeted, as a marionettist, Tang, who possessed Mr. Air's power, wouldn't be easily tracked. As a marionettist who had just advanced to Sequence 5, the abilities and personal qualities Tang displayed also showed his seasoned experience in the extraordinary world. Facing a demigod's pursuit, and under the protection of at least an angel-level power, a diviner with extremely high spirituality couldn't possibly allow a demigod to silently follow him. Klein's interactions with the rebellion were zero. But they still found him. Why? Klein didn't know the answer. He had only speculated before that the witch, or someone connected to her, might be a transmigrator. Klein had already informed Flammel about this, but so far, Flammel hadn't provided him with any information on the matter. As for whether he hadn't found anything yet, or if there were other reasons, Klein wasn't clear. However, it was clear that these guys had found him before Flammel could give him more concrete information. A bunch of lunatics, Klein recalled Tang's description of these people. He expressionlessly pressed his knee against the squirming young man on the ground and said coldly, "If you don't speak, I can kill you right now." "No, no, no, wait, wait." The young man cried out, and the commotion attracted the attention of passers-by at the alley entrance. However, after seeing the situation inside, those pedestrians merely glanced quickly and walked past. They wouldn't interfere with such matters, nor could they afford to. Someone with a bit of conscience might call the police later, but by the time the police arrived, it would be at least 20 minutes to half an hour later. This amount of time was enough for Klein to get the information he wanted. "Ms. Triss requested it." Klein took out his revolver from his holster. Hearing the safety click open and feeling Klein's killing intent, the man quickly said, "That lady said she knows some secrets hidden in the darkness of Backland, and she believes you'll be interested." Triss. Klein was full of doubt. He didn't know anyone named Triss. But, he had indeed recently encountered a lady from the rebellion. It was indeed my request. Suddenly, a voice came from the deeper darkness of the alley. Klein hadn't heard this voice before, and he hadn't even sensed a person existing in that spot. Klein retreated a few steps, staring at the shadows ahead. His danger premonition was alarming wildly, something terrifying was there. That wasn't an enemy Klein could deal with. If he acted rashly, death would be his end. From the shadows deep within the alley emerged a lady with a beautiful face, smooth black hair around her face, and a gentle, sweet demeanor that easily made people lower their guard. If it was this person, Klein knew her. This was the demigod hidden in the mirror who had followed him all the way before. It was the demigod of the witch sequence who was suspected of being a transmigrator. Sequence 7 fighting Sequence 4, very good, the advantage was not with him. Never mind, time to call for backup. Triss was about to say something when she heard Sherlock Moriarty, upon seeing her, begin to rapidly chant in ancient Hermes language with an unexpected speed, as if he had practiced it thousands of times in secret. Witch of the past, ancient one of eternal life, observer of Backland, protector in the mirror. Triss. She almost laughed in anger. Why hadn't Sherlock Moriarty been so dramatic before? Now, at the slightest sign of trouble, he immediately called for backup. Could it be that she had a fake previous life? Had this person changed a bit too much? Wait, Mr. Moriarty, please wait a moment. Klein glanced at Triss, completely ignoring her, and quickly finished reciting the last line of the Elder Witch Achirley's honorific name. The incorrect agent of error. Only a fool would listen to her. He wasn't going to waste time with her here. He knew this guy was troublesome and not someone he could deal with. Klein wasn't stupid, so of course, he would first capture this guy and then slowly question her. After all, the first rule of a diviner is to follow the heart's desire. But, Klein's eyes flickered. He suddenly glanced behind him. At some point, the lights at the alley entrance had disappeared, and the pedestrians on the street were nowhere to be seen. Large patches of rusty red iron filings replaced the lights, floating in the air, blocking his path of escape. The lights and pedestrians had mysteriously vanished, leaving only the scarlet moon high in the sky. Klein looked at his clothes again. At some point, his clothes were also stained with something like rust. The paper substitute failed. Klein, without changing his expression, touched the paper figures in his pocket. Those paper figures no longer had the feel of paper, instead, they exuded the coldness of metal. A great sense of crisis immediately enveloped his heart. The rust floating in the air blocked the attention drawn by Klein's chanting of the honorific name. Unbeknownst to him, he had been isolated in a sealed environment. This might be a special mirror world, or a place created by a sealed artifact. But in any case, ordinary methods, whether a traveler's teleportation or others, probably couldn't bypass it. Just as Klein was thinking about how to escape, he heard, indeed. Triss sighed. As a despair witch who had already digested her potion, her every word and action was filled with an unimaginable charm. But Klein was clearly more vigilant than he was tempted by the witch's naturally exuded charm. Although it's a bit presumptuous, this is a necessary measure. Klein retreated a few more steps. He watched as the young man he had just pinned to the ground scrambled behind the despair witch named Triss and disappeared. So, what do you want to tell me? She didn't seem to want to deal with him, but she also didn't want to face Acherly. What were these rebellion members up to? Can you guys not act like Louis XVI feeling his head, alright? Triss, we don't want to have unnecessary contact with Miskatonic. They are like jackals walking in the dark, not friendly to us. I believe Mr. Moriarty, you should be able to feel that. Klein's eyes flickered. He had carefully observed the despair witch in front of him just now and hadn't found anything unusual. He didn't know if her disguise was too good, or if she truly didn't know about the meme. But Klein was already leaning towards the idea that this despair witch was not a transmigrator. She did know him, but he definitely didn't know her. This, knowing, was not knowing his name, knowing Klein Moretti the person. So where, and under what circumstances, did they meet? Klein felt that this Triss person was really a bit too familiar with him. She was familiar with some of his affairs, but not that familiar, not like an acquaintance, more like someone he occasionally interacted with. But until now, Klein had never encountered this type of person in his memory. You don't want to talk to Miskatonic, so why come to me? Knowing that chanting the honorific name was ineffective, Klein lowered his eyes, preparing for his next counterattack. In this place, perhaps only Flammel's honorific name could be effective. He should have directly chanted Flammel's honorific name back then. If he chanted it now, the other party would surely stop him. Given their reluctance to face Miskatonic, if Flammel's gaze penetrated here, they would have no way out. There was a huge, insurmountable chasm between a demigod and an angel. Wait for an opportunity, stall them first. Thoughts settled in Klein's eyes. Soon, using the sealed artifact and his clown control ability, Klein hid his thoughts and didn't show them. Because these matters cannot be discussed with Miskatonic. Their hostility is simply too great, Mr. Moriarty. Triss's lips curved slightly. She looked affectionately at the magician, who was only at sequence 7, but Klein's expression grew more solemn as he took another step back, once again widening the distance between them. What a two-faced man. Who knows if you're a man or a woman? Klein muttered in his heart. Just speak your mind. In this situation, I should have no choice, right? If what you want is for me to relay something, I can help you relay it. After much thought, Klein could only come up with this reason for them to seek him out. Indeed, but are you currently thinking of finding an opportunity to chant that honorific name? Behind Klein, a pitch-black revolver was aimed at his head. Triss smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, your attitude towards us is also not friendly. This is a necessary measure. A bloody smell came from behind. Someone was holding a revolver to his head. If there was any problem, Klein had no doubt that the revolver could blow another hole in his head. He didn't know how many more times he could revive. Klein slightly tightened his grip on the unusable paper substitute in his pocket, but quickly released it again. Then, Detective Moriarty, please come with us. In the dark alley, all sounds disappeared. A homeless man fumbled his way into the alley, seeing no one. As some pedestrians approached the alley, their faces began to become grotesque. These people gathered at the alley entrance, looking at the empty alley, and mechanically displayed identical smiles one after another. Discovered. Klein was taken. What to do? Kill those rebellion members? No, this is a necessary step, can't kill them yet. They should become like us. Why not? This is how to be happy. Happy. Isn't this happiness what everyone yearns for? Why did they refuse? One spiritual body thread after another intertwined, extending towards the sky. The swarming marionettes filled the entire alley, their deformed and terrifying appearance attracting no one's attention. Find Klein. Find Klein. Find him. In the dark side of Backland, eyes opened one after another, and gazes filled with madness and fervor constantly swept over the objects around them. Find him. The marionettes went into a frenzy. At the detective agency, Tang picked up his cup, while Acherly, sitting opposite him, looked at the red moon outside the window. Why did you let him take such a risk? Tang put down his cup, looking at his reflection in the teacup, one hand propping up his chin. Why do you think so? Triss Kike has some connection with the original witch, doesn't she? Acherly frowned. Plus the former Angel King of the Red Priest sequence, such a combination is likely to cause something. Even if it does, that will be a long time from now. A sequence 4 and a mere evil spirit, their combined effect is far from reaching that level. I thought you would talk about that rebellion. Tang sneered. Those people seem to have developed a considerable force here in Backland. Plus, with the help of Triss Kike and Soren Einhorn Medici, I thought you would be worried about that. After all, Klein is an important part of my plan. If he falls into their hands, coupled with his connection to Miskatonic, perhaps those people will be detrimental to us or something. But, are those people a threat to you? Acherly asked. They killed quite a few of my marionettes. Tang leaned back in his chair, holding his cup and looking at the liquid swirling inside. He did not directly answer the question. But obviously, no. An evil spirit from an old era, a reborn person who returned due to the power of the Ring of Destiny. These two, for Tang, whose true body was an Angel King, who had fully digested his potion, controlled the source material, and was supported by an even more terrifying unspeakable being, were not worth his attention. It's too easy to clear out these people, isn't it? Tang raised his eyes, smiling. He snapped his fingers, and a mirror nearby shimmered, displaying another scene. Sometimes, playing a cultivation game, then performing a dimensionality reduction strike, and watching their horrified, terrified, and despairing expressions, is also a good way to pass the time. Acherly. One could only say, truly worthy of being a reserve lord of the mysteries. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.